All right. Let's go live, kids. Da, da, da. Let's see what we got. As usual, trying to get a few things together. So having to do some stuff for work this morning too. So a little bit behind, but not bad. All right. What is up? What's going on, brother Warsaw? Good morning. Bob, good morning, my brother. I'm still trying to slam down coffee and wake up, guys. So yeah, it's one of those mornings. So we'll give it a couple minutes, see who all show, give everybody kind of a little bit of time to show up. See who does show up. First thing this morning, woke up and checked, just the feeds, see what was going on, and found out from Washington gun law that the Gators guns case in Washington State was heard in their Supreme Court yesterday. So that's what we're going to listen to this morning. Let's do this. So this might be like the first time I try to do a poll in chat. We'll see. I'll come up with it in a second, because see what you guys think about this judge. Now, this is the judge that when the large capacity magazine, however you want to say it, LCMs and all that, when that got stayed, where everybody had a little bit of time to go out and buy some standard capacity magazines, sit like this. And yeah, those are two taped together. Works great, by the way. Warsaw, you know good and well in here, brother. You ain't never got to apologize for being a smartass. But anyway, this is the judge who basically had everything ready to go to put a stay on it and keep the ban active. Basically, he had everything ready to go before that the ink was even dry on the stay that actually allowed people to buy magazines again. The good thing about Washington State is, and I haven't seen a couple other states when it comes to cases like this, is their Supreme Court, all of their stuff is pretty easy to find the videos on. Kirk from Washington Gun Law actually posted a link to it, but I just went right to the page and found it. It is pretty easy to find when cases come up there. It's just a matter of knowing when they're going to come up so we can share them. But that is what we are fixing to do. Yeah, when it comes to the bans and stuff, yeah, well, I think Oregon is doing better than Washington. Matter of fact, you'll hear in this oral argument that this judge really ain't a fan of what's going on in Oregon. And this is the first, and we've listened to a lot of oral arguments. Any kind of state ones that we can find, of course, all the federals that we can find. This is the first time I've seen a judge take a couple of minutes at the start of an oral argument and go into his own explanation about what he did, why he did it. It was not looking good for Gator guns, kids. And for those of you who don't know, Gator's guns, one of the reasons they're wrapped up in this is because when Washington State did their mag ban, Gator's guns was actually, they kept selling large capacity magazines, standard capacity magazines. I use LCM because that's what they use. So Gator's guns kept selling. And I think it was their attorney general was going around to gun shops and seeing if anybody was selling these large capacity magazines. Gator's guns was. So I'd have to look up the fines and everything. It was millions of dollars that Gator's guns is going to have to pay out. Because these dumbasses in Washington State decided that, hey, 30-round magazines, no, can't have those. It'll stop mass shootings. Nowhere in the fucking history of man has someone who was going to go out and commit a mass murder, nowhere have they been worried about, oh, gee, I can't do that with a 30-round mag. I got to go get 10 rounders. And I think Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, I think that idiot used some 10 round mags. Pretty sure it was him or another one. But it's not because they limited themselves to 10 rounds. It was just the mags they could get. Still committed the shooting. So didn't stop shit. So good morning, everybody. Let's go ahead and get into this. Da, 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 da. As usual, let's do a screen share. Let me find the right tab. Da, 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 and here's this jackass. Let me make sure I am. Yeah, let me back this all the way up so we get everything in this. God knows I'd hate to fucking miss something this dumbass has to say. Oh, and he really doesn't like the fact that Washington gun law is out there telling people, hey, this is being stayed. Get your magazines while you can. So, yeah, Washington gun law gets mentioned in this oral argument. Hysterical. Because they can't argue that Kurt was saying anything wrong. Matter of fact, they say that he's telling people to follow the law. Lightning, what's up, my brother? And this is where I say this is the first time I've ever seen a judge during an oral argument or a judge that was going to hear oral arguments announce he's going to make a statement at the start of the oral arguments. He's going to take time out of everybody's day so he can explain his position. No audio. Hold on. What's up? Let's see. Let me do this again. Make sure. Yeah, we got audio on. All right. You guys let me know if there's audio on this now, because there should be. If not, I'm going to have to check something. All right. Uh, Let me see if I can figure this out. Why would there not be any audio? I can hear it. Let's do this. I'm going to stop the screen share. I'm going to refresh that. Watch, I'll refresh it and lose it. I'm going to lose my shit. All right, let's go back to this. Let me screen share it again. All right, audio is on. So let's try this again. Give it a sec. They're not saying anything now. Give it a sec. All right. Tell me you got audio now. Ah, good. I don't know why. Why in the hell? Hold on. Because I had an issue one day. You turn those off. I had an issue one day with sharing audio. Let's see. Let me try this again. Let's see whether that.
All right. The cause number is 102940-3. All right. Now, I'm here. If you just give me a minute. Let's see here. Okay. And my video disappeared for some reason. Okay. Oh, here. Let me get started again.
Yeah.
There we are. All right. Thank you. Okay. So you'll notice
with this computer.
I'm going to, before we start this hearing, I'm going to take a little while and make some introductory remarks. All right. And I'm doing this for
all right, so we're 5 by 5.
One is that this is a very high profile case.
DLD, good morning, brother.
We believe there's a lot of people watching it. We believe members of the public, other attorneys, news media. All right. And it has come to our attention that there's been statements made that kind of indicate that people don't understand the procedure that's involved, kind of what's going on. And so I'm going to make some opening remarks before we get into the hearing that are intended to sort of provide a little bit of
computer audio
information so that when people come away from this hearing, they'll have a better understanding of how these proceedings work and what the background is and so on and so forth. All right. So it's kind of like a long public service announcement in a sense. All right. And so that's how we're going to begin this.
Only time I've ever seen it do this.
You might notice that, I'm sitting in what appears to be a courtroom. Okay. And so just to kind of give you a flavor of things. It looks like a courtroom. It's actually a virtual courtroom. Where I'm sitting actually is here, a cramped office in a temporary facility in Tumwater while our court is undergoing renovation. All right. And so
nobody cares.
When I do hearings, Zoom hearings like this, I use a virtual courtroom, and here we are. Right. So, okay. So, who am I? All right. Well, I'm commissioner of the state Supreme Court. Okay. When I was appointed commissioner, I went to a thing called Judicial College, which is kind of a boot camp for judges. And the two questions I always got were, the Supreme Court has a commissioner, and what do you do? All right. And so the commissioner of the Supreme Court is, there's me and there's deputy commissioner. We have 3 crackerjack administrative assistants and 5 brilliant staff attorneys. And what we do is we are the gatekeeper of the court. So when a case comes to the court in various guises, my job and the job of the deputy commissioner is to look at those and enter rulings. Okay, we're not ruling on the ultimate merits of the case. We're ruling on whether it is procedurally teed up, whether it belongs in this court, and various procedural things. And that's what we do. Okay. And it's important to note that any decision I make by way of a ruling can be reversed by the justices of this court. All right. So what's this case about? All right. Well, we put together just a real brief summary, and that's whether the commissioner of the Washington Supreme Court should grant an emergency motion for stay of a Cowlitz County Superior Court order invalidating and enjoining enforcement of Washington's statute concerning large capacity magazines pending appellate review. All right. In the statute we're talking about, there's 2 of them actually. And one of them is, and sorry if I look away, but I've got paper desk. Okay, and one of the statutes is RCW 941-370, which pertains to large capacity magazines. And then there's a statute, RCW 941-375, which involves, unfair method of competition by way of, transacting business in large capacity magazines. Now, many people noticed that when the Superior Court entered its ruling in Cowlitz County, that the Attorney General's office immediately moved for an emergency stay. All right. And people were kind of, a little bit blown away when I issued a ruling staying that order in pretty short, pretty quick fashion. Okay. I think people who are really familiar with what we do here, really wouldn't be surprised that much. Okay. But a lot of people are. All right. So I want to explain some background here. All right. Okay. We're going to start with talking about another case that landed on my desk back in December. All right. In this case called Guardian Arms LLC versus State of Washington. All right. And that case involved an action to get to enjoin or strike down this state's statute on assault weapons, RCW 941390. All right.
Trying to do something.
Now you might find this interesting, but the same attorneys are involved in that case as is involved in this case. All right. And so in that case, it went to Thurston County, and the Thurston County Superior Court denied a motion for a motion for a preliminary injunction of that statute. There, which was Guardian Arms, filed a motion for direct discretionary review in our court, and those come to me. I rule on those. I can grant them, I can deny them, I can just simply transfer them to the Court of Appeals. All right. So I get this case back in December, and I go really deep into the research on it. All right. And so in the process of several weeks, I did very extensive research on the history of firearms and firearm regulation and so forth and whatnot. And eventually on January 22nd, 2024, I issued a ruling that denied this motion for direct discretionary review. Okay. Now, in the process of conducting that research, I mean, there was a pile of research.
Remember, this is
in this
this
case.
is nothing but
The process of conducting that
position
research,
before
I mean,
the
there was
argument.
a pile of research. Okay, in this case, and this case was so important, I felt that I actually asked the law library, or of course, law library, to obtain some, reference material to help me out. So things like the Shooter's Bible, okay, and some various other reference materials that helped in informing how much, and how this all works and comes together. Okay, in the process of doing the research on the Guardian's Arms case, I came across a case out of California. It was called Bonta versus Duncan, or was it Duncan versus Bonta? I don't remember, but it was a federal case. Okay, and there, a federal district court judge invalidated California's similar statute, and actually
He's not a Roger
invalidated statute
kids.
regulating large capacity magazines. Okay, and what happened in that case, and this was back in 2019, what happened back in that case when they put this injunction in place, everybody went hog wild in California and went out, and there was like this feeding frenzy on LCMs, these large capacity magazines. And in a space of about a week, okay, the national supply of large capacity magazines was more or less depleted.
What we called freedom.
Okay, and then the federal court went and put a stay on it. All right, to staunch the flow while the case was on appeal. Okay, so I was aware of this when I did the rule, when I did the research on the Guardian Arms case. So I was aware of this issue. Okay, so the Guardian Arms ruling went out. As I noted before, the court can reverse me. Usually the procedure is that a party that is aggrieved by one of my rulings files a motion to modify my ruling, which goes to the justices and they do a de novo review. And if they disagree with my ruling, they'll overrule it. Okay. As it happens, Guardian Arms, who are the party that's agreed by this ruling, didn't move to modify it. Okay. So the ruling on when was that? It was February 22nd, 2024. The ruling became final. All right. So my ruling was fixed. Okay. I was done with that. All right. And then on March 7th, 2024, we receive an email from the Attorney General's office and says, hey, there's going to be a summary judgment motion argued on Monday, March 11th, 2024 in Calhoun County at 9 a.m. And the subject there is whether or not the court's going to strike down RCW 941, 370, and 375. If the court does so, the Attorney General's office will seek immediate emergency relief. Okay. Now, importantly, that email was CC'd to Gator's Guns. Okay. So Gator's Guns knew that the Attorney General's office had contacted our court, and we knew that they knew. Okay. And so here we are, told that on the next Monday there's going to be a summary judgment here. Okay. So what do? I get back into my research. Okay. Focusing specifically on these LCMs. Okay. I already had a pile of research, so I went and piled up more research. Okay. March 11th comes and goes. We're waiting. Is there going to be a ruling? We get, again, an email from the Attorney General's office and CC'd to Gator's Guns and says, well, the court heard the motion, took it under advisement, and there will be a ruling coming out later. Okay. All right. Fine. We just wait. Okay. So we go ahead. I continue doing my research. Okay. It's interesting to me. Personal side note, I'm a gun enthusiast.
Barton Fink, what's up?
I own firearms. I learned to shoot when I was 9 years old. Okay. There's a species of ground squirrel in Spokane County that's on an endangered list, probably because of me. All right.
I got to stop this right here. So again, he's qualifying just like a lot of truly anti-gun people do, qualifying everything. I'm a gun owner. I know how to shoot. Again, not looking good for the home team. But does this guy, if you watch him speak, does he remind anybody else of Rick Moranis? Because he's really giving me that vibe, and it's getting on my nerves.
I fired everything from a 22 to an AR-15 to a 1911 Argentine Army Mauser. All right. So I know guns really. I know a lot about guns. I've been studying them for over 50 years. All right. So just a side note. Okay. It's a subject of particular interest to me. All right. So anyway, we're waiting to see what happens.
It's amazing.
Okay? So I'm doing my research. Okay. Now we try to be efficient.
Hey,
we try to be quick and
how's it going?
organized in what we do. So not surprisingly, I set aside some boilerplate. We have templates for our rulings and whatnot and so forth. Okay. So eventually, on March 11th, when was that? That was, when was it? April 8th. Okay. It was a Monday, April 8th. Okay. Our court received an email at 3:17 p.m. Okay. It's from the Attorney General's office. Attached to it is the order from the Superior Court. Okay, the folks in the clerk's office who receive these things, they push a button and it goes immediately to me. Okay, so here I've got the Superior Court's order. All right, now I had anticipated, based on my research in the Guardian's Guns case, I had a pretty good notion of how this was going to be argued. Okay, so I had a really good notion of what the briefing probably looked like in the trial court. I didn't dig into the trial court briefing because it's just kind of, I didn't need to. I wanted to research the case law out there and do some history research. All right. So I had a really good idea of what the briefing was going to look like. And, to the trial judge's credit, he put in a really nice table of contents. And so I've been doing this for close to 25 years. And, I know how to read a ruling and dive right into the heart of the matter. Okay. So with the help of that, I could dive right into this thing. Now, let me explain what I was doing. Okay. I'm not deciding whether the court is right or wrong. Okay. What I'm doing is I'm doing an exercise in issue spotting. Okay. Because we're operating on a rule. It's called Rules of Appellate Procedure 8.1B3. All right. And what I'm looking for is whether there are any debatable issues. That's the first thing. All right. So I start going through the trial court's order, pinpointing, the salient points. Okay. It became very clear to me right away.
Into it, trust me.
Probably within 15, 20 minutes of reading that order, that there were, in my view, some highly debatable issues. Okay. And it became more and more clear as I went through that order. All right.
Gina, how's it going?
The Attorney General, we hadn't gotten the emergency motion yet, so I can't do anything. I can't do a ruling. I can't make a decision until I see that emergency motion.
Let's see.
The emergency motion arrived by email again.
So we're this is supposed to be oral arguments. We're 15 minutes in, and the only thing this judge is doing is explaining his reasoning behind putting a stay on things. And he's already told you that he basically had all the boilerplate language, had the entire thing ready to go, so that when there was a stay on large capacity magazines, he already had his ruling done. Poof. It was already there. And again, I've never seen this at the start of an oral argument where you have a judge who is supposed to be hearing an oral argument. He is supposed to have evidence presented to him. He's supposed to make his mind up on that evidence. And he's telling you for over 15 minutes now that he's going to make his mind up however he wants based on his own opinion. It's got jack shit to do with facts. So, yeah, it ain't looking good for Gator's guns.
CC to Gator's guns at about 4:14 p.m. All right. So I look at it, it's shorter, about 30 pages. But you know what? Just looking at it, I found that I had anticipated all the arguments that the Attorney General was going to make. All right. Based again on my research and my experience working with the previous case. So it was easy. All right. So I continued looking at both the trial court order, the Attorney General's motion. I've got my boilerplate, I've got my template, and then there's another part of the exercise. I'm the whole time I'm kind of balancing. What are the
talking about?
What are the harms to the moving party, the Attorney General's office, compared to the harms for the non-moving party?
Now, oh man, that statement right there pisses me off so much it ain't even funny. The Attorney General's office, with a stay on this, is not suffering harm. The government can't suffer harm from that. Who can suffer harm is Gator Guns, who could basically be charged millions of dollars for selling standard magazines. That's who suffers harm, not the fucking government.
Which is Gator's gun. All right. And so I ultimately made a decision that a temporary stay, not just a temporary stay, was warranted. And again, I was remembering what happened in the California case. So the California case, when they entered this injunction, everybody went into this just buying spree of these LCMs. Okay, I wasn't sure what was happening. Okay, but I figured, well, maybe that's happening. Okay, that could be happening. Maybe there's word out there. Maybe people are jumping into the cars to drive to Idaho. Maybe people are sitting on their computers or on their smartphones and they're ordering 10 packs of 30 round magazines or something, over the internet. I don't know, but there could be something going on out there. So I was concerned about that. So I went ahead and decided, I made the call, all right, that I was going to enter a temporary stay. Okay, because another thing I was concerned about was that I knew it was going to be a week and a half or so before we could have this hearing. All right. So I felt it was appropriate, prudent, and in the interest of public health and welfare and safety, okay, to enter a temporary stay. And so it took a very short time to write up a 2-page ruling, about 15 minutes is all. Okay, again, we work with templates. We've got a great team of people. We pull it all together. Have my deputy commissioner, who's a brilliant man. He's like a walking rule book, a walking encyclopedia of law, reviewed it and said, this is good. Okay, I had the clerk and the deputy clerk look at it to make sure it's good from their angle. Yeah, it looks good. Okay, we're all in agreement. Okay, I put a digitally copied signature on it with a click of a mouse. And send it right to the clerk's office in our document handling system. And they push the button and it's uploaded and it was filed at 4:58 p.m. All right. So that was a good challenge, but we got it done. All right. So, okay, we did that. I entered that temporary stay. The next morning I come to work. My email inbox has got some very nasty emails in it. Okay, I had a couple of very nasty voicemails that were left, one at 5:30 in the morning, one at 8:30 at night the next day. Okay. And I got a phone call, from a person who, I answer on my own phone, and I get a phone call from this person, and I say, "Hello, this is Commissioner Michael Johnston." And there's this pause on the line, because he just realized he actually got me, and he said, "You friggin' suck, bro." All right. He didn't say friggin', right? So anyway, we understood there was a public reaction. Okay. And it's not surprising. I've entered rulings before on on some sensitive topics. For example, COVID restrictions. I entered a ruling on COVID restrictions. And then I had a voicemail where a lady lectured me for about a minute on the wonders of ivermectin. Okay.
Ivermectin.
I know what that is. I grew up on a farm in Spokane, and we used it to worm our Arabian show horses, whatever. Okay, we're used to getting feedback. So anyway, for the benefit of everybody watching, I just wanted to lay that out and explain all that. Okay, now getting back to the case. All right, so we're talking about statute, well, two statutes. Is 941, 370, 940.
So 20 minutes in, and he's just now going to get to the actual case in front of him. I have never seen something like that in an oral arguments. And you guys know we've watched God knows how many different oral arguments. I've never seen that. It blows my mind.
41, 375. All right. 941, 370 says that you're not going to manufacture, import, sell, trade, give away, whatever, large capacity magazine. Okay. Yeah, there it is. No person in this state may manufacture, import, distribute, sell, or offer for sale any large capacity magazine, except for some exceptions that are not relevant here. Right?
Yeah.
So, what is a large capacity magazine? Large capacity magazine is defined as follows under RCW 941. Was it 941 010 sub 25? Large capacity magazine means an ammunition feeding device with the capacity to accept more than 10 rounds of ammunition or any conversion kit, part, or combination of parts from which such a device can be assembled if those parts are in possession of or under the control of the same person, but shall not be construed to include any of the following. So there's three exceptions. Okay. A, an ammunition feeding device that has been permanently altered so that it cannot accommodate more than 10 rounds of ammunition. That means like a 30-round LCM that's been crimped or has a pin in it or something like that, so it can't accept more than 10 rounds. Okay. B, a 22 caliber tube ammunition feeding device, like it's like my Remington 66, which has a tube magazine running through the buttstock of the whole 14 rounds. That's exempt. Okay. Or C, a tubular magazine that's contained in a lever action firearm. That means you can buy like a reproduction of an 1860 lever action Henry rifle that will, has a tube magazine running under the barrel that take about 15 rounds, I believe. Or another example would be the Winchester 94, which I think holds like 7 or 8 rounds in a tube magazine under the barrel. Okay, so that's the statute. All right. So I'm not going to get into the complexity of the underlying litigation because it makes my head hurt. Okay, and I'm going to ask counsel maybe about that. All right. So
I bet the underlying litigation makes this guy's head hurt. Because when you actually look at this on the facts, What was the last number they came up with for standard capacity magazines out there right now? What, like 700 million, something like that? More than common use. More than common use. That's like, oh fuck, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I got like 9 of them sitting on my desk right now. Anything from AR mags to SIG mags, Glock mags. Kurt, what's up, my brother? How you doing this morning? Hopefully you're having a good day at work. At least 32 mil based on filament supply. Yeah, it's these fucking people. And you hear the guns he's talking about, and this is his inner FUD being thrown up on everybody in the court, talking about a Remington 66 nylon or an 18 something lever, or you can have these and they hold more. You realize that lever action, the repeating rifle, was basically the AR of its time. There were what was it? There were some soldiers in the Civil War talked about Union soldiers, said they could load on, what was it, load on Monday and shoot all week, or load on Sunday and shoot all week. Because they had repeating firearms. Again, just because technology increases, because it advances, doesn't mean our rights shrink. And wait till somebody commits a mass shooting where they walk in with a pump action shotgun full of buckshot and they start shooting people. Wait to see what happens. These judges are so fucking ridiculous. But yeah, him getting emails and calls on this, and like Gina said, welcome to the real world. But his deal is he's a judge. No one can question him. He's got a black robe on and all that. Maybe just get me a black robe and start wearing it. And then I'll tell everybody, no, you can't question me. How dare someone question the judge?
Got that out of the way. All right. So, state, who's arguing for the state?
William McGinty.
All right. Okay, Mr. McGinty. I added an extra 5 minutes for oral argument. There we go. All right, and I did that because, well, I have questions.
I want to time some.
So, Mr. McGinty, how much time do you want to save for rebuttal?
I'd like to reserve 5 minutes for rebuttal.
For about 5 minutes. Okay. All right. There we go. All right. It's your motion. You go ahead, Mr. McGinty.
Thank you, Your Honor. The court should maintain the stay of the trial court's order pending a full decision on the merits of this appeal because the standard is clearly met.
Okay, I want to ask you a question real quick. Okay, you filed a notice of appeal back on April 8th, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, we just got it a couple of days ago. I don't know why it took so long to come here. Okay, you have to do something more than file a notice of appeal, is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, what do you got to do?
Well, we need to, next stage in this particular appeal, we need to file a statement of grounds for direct review. I believe that's due on April 23rd. And then we need to designate the clerk's papers and the indicator in the court of proceedings.
Okay, all right. So, okay, assuming you timely file your notice of grounds for direct review. Okay, just for all the folks out there, what's happening here is this is an appeal that's filed directly to this court. This court has to make a decision whether it's going to keep the appeal here or transfer it to the Court of Appeal. All right, so, Mr. McGinty, what's happening in the trial court meanwhile? What's going on there?
I do not believe that there's any proceedings scheduled within the trial court. We are hoping that this appeal will be granted. I think we have a final order, so we're certainly appealing that. It's either going to go to this court or to the Court of Appeals. And while that appeal is pending, then the trial court proceedings will be stayed under, I believe it's RAP 7.2.
Okay, all right, thank you. Please continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. The issues presented by the state's appeal are plainly debatable because more than a dozen judicial determinations post-Berlin have come down upholding the constitutionality of laws like SB 5078. And here you referenced the various RCW numbers. I'm going to be talking about SB 5078 to talk about them all together. And moreover, the balance of harms weighs sharply in favor of maintaining this stay because SB 5078 is a critical public safety law that will save lives.
Okay, I want to ask you a question. Okay, I've kind of like tried to wall myself off from kind of outside news, whatever, you know, with very little success. But you know, was my hunch about what happened in California, was it correct in
Yes,
what happened?
Yeah, that was completely correct. In fact, in the 2 hours that the trial court's injunction, approximately 2 hours, that the trial court's injunction was in effect, Gator's Guns itself sold hundreds of large capacity magazines. It posted on social media saying that it was going to be open hours that it was not normally open. We attached all that to the declaration of Victoria Johnson, showing both newspaper articles and social media posts showing that firearms retailers in the state were selling large capacity magazines as fast as they possibly could.
Yeah, I saw you posted like this thing on YouTube. And can you tell me about that? What's that about?
I didn't post anything on YouTube, Your Honor.
Oh, no, I meant you cited the thing on some YouTube thing. And I saw, anyway, what is it? Just tell me what it is. I haven't looked at it.
Now, he's going to get into Washington gun law page, Kirk's page on this. Now, I posted Kirk's page, Washington gun law, in the chat. You guys go check him out if you're not following Washington gun law. Because he does talk about stuff outside, all over the United States as far as mag bans, assault weapons bans, a lot of stuff coming through the courts, a lot of stuff coming through the legislatures. And he of course, will give you a much smoother opinion than I do because you guys know me. I tend to use a whole lot of profanity and smoke a lot and drink a lot. So,
absolutely, Your Honor. So that's William Kirk. He's an advocate for gun rights, and he posted this before the injunction was issued, and it was instructions about how to buy large capacity magazines as fast as possible if an injunction were issued. And he was very explicit that he anticipated that a stay would eventually be granted. And so his argument or his instruction to folks who wanted to buy LCMs while there was an injunction pending was to act as fast as possible and to purchase injunctions or purchase large capacity magazines as quickly as possible.
Did he just post like one thing there, or did he like, you know?
No, Your Honor. Bill Kirk is a prolific YouTube poster. He's constantly talking to other folks in the gun community within Washington state in order to advise them about how to follow the law. And I think he's actually pretty explicit about that. But in order also to take advantage of any injunctions that may
is that Bill Kirk, like the DUI lawyer? Is that him? He's a lawyer.
He might do DUI work. I'm not familiar with his practice.
Okay, because there's a guy I went to law school with named Bill Kirk. So I'm wondering if it's the same guy. Maybe it is. Maybe I'll have to look at it. I mean, you cited it. So
on one of his videos, he did in fact reference being a fellow Gonzaga alum like yourself in the same class.
Yeah. Oh, good for him. Okay. Anyway, all right. So so that kind of stuff was going on. You said that it was like, go just get out there and buy stuff, right?
Yes, absolutely, Your Honor. And that would constitute irreparable injury from the state's perspective here. So we think we meet the standard under RAP 8.1b3 and also 8.3, because this injunction needs to be maintained to ensure equitable and effective review. Because if these large capacity magazines are sold at breakneck speed, while the trial court's injunction is allowed to stand, while we vindicate SB 5078's constitutionality on appeal, that genie simply cannot be put back into the bottle. You know, okay. In contradiction to that, on the other side, it's important to recognize that the unconstitutionality of SB 5078 was alleged in this case as a response to the state's enforcement of the Consumer Protection Act. So Gator's Guns didn't sue affirmatively, seeking an injunction. This is different than the Guardian Arms case in that respect. What Gator's Guns did is they just continued to sell large capacity magazines even after the law went into effect. And then the state in an enforcement action said, in effect, stop it and be held accountable. In that,
I want to ask you. Okay, I want to ask you a question. Let's talk about whether there's debatable issues. Okay, and when I was reading the trial court's order, and of course I've read it more extensively since I entered the state. Debate. There's just issues just flying up out of it. And so one of the ones that kind of struck me is this Bruin approach. Setting a hard line at 1791. And so I was just wondering if you thought that if we kind of look at that in a logical sense, and let's say we accept that's correct, and so the large capacity magazine ban would be illegal or
Not a fan of
unconstitutional.
Bruin either, apparently.
What about the assault weapon ban?
well, as your honor is aware, there have been dozens of different judicial determinations post-Bruin that have upheld laws like SB 5078 and like the assault weapons ban. And that has been on numerous and independently sufficient rationales. So even if we accept this trial court's holding that 1791 is the line for all historical analogs, and I don't think that's right. I think that's itself a major debatable issue. But even if we accept that that's true, courts have upheld laws against large capacity magazines and assault weapons on the basis that those aren't even arms at all under the text of the Second Amendment and by extension, Article 1, Section 24. Because large capacity magazines in particular are accessories that are not necessary for any firearm to function exactly as designed. That's
Okay.
the expert Jim Urdialitis.
Okay, so suppose, okay, we take that. Let's suppose like for you, a worst case scenario is say, okay, LCMs are unconstitutional in light of this Bruin hard 1791 line. On the analogous laws, let's say the assault weapon ban is unconstitutional under the same theory. How about the National Firearms Act, machine guns?
Well, Your Honor, I do think that's, and the
Yes, that's
reasoning
unconstitutional
here, so
too.
large capacity magazines, accessories, like I was just talking about, I think machine guns, how would you justify that constitutionality under the rationale of the trial court's decision here? I don't think you could. Short-barreled shotguns, similarly, both of those were held to be, prohibitable, or at least regulatable, very strictly regulatable, by the Heller decision, where the Heller in the United States Supreme Court said that it would be startling if M16s and short-barreled shotguns were.
Another reason.
So that was then. Now we're here with Bruin, which really seems to, really change the analysis, and courts are really struggling with it right now. Okay.
I think that's
Anyway.
correct. So
Yeah.
courts are struggling with that analysis. That's one of the reasons why it's important to have expert historians who can assist courts in guiding and taking a look at that historical analysis, which we had in this case, and courts, including the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals and Beavis v. Naperville, have upheld large capacity magazine restrictions as being consistent with the history and tradition of the United States. And here we had three expert historians who all opined that SB 5078 is consistent with the history and tradition of the United States. So as you say, the debatable issues are just coming up out of the woodwork in this opinion. Certainly we meet that. Certainly we meet the balance of harms requirement of RAP 8.1b3. A stay is also necessary to preserve the fruits of the appeal. And so unless Your Honor has any other questions, I'll reserve the remainder for the rebuttal.
Yeah, okay, we're good. You just do that. I just want to remind folks, we're not talking about here. We're not here today. We're not talking about whether or not the Superior Court should be affirmed or reversed. My stay, the stay I entered, did not reverse the Superior Court. It just simply held, put a stop or rather put a pause on the court's order.
And again, this idea that the state, the government, is somehow harmed is absolutely insane. The state is not in danger of losing their livelihood. The state is not in danger of going to prison. The state is not in danger of paying millions of dollars in fines. The state is simply spending your fucking tax dollars to strip you of your legal property. And when it comes to a business, the state is spending their tax dollars to put these people out of business. These people are absolutely fucking insane. They don't believe in the Constitution, even of their own state. They don't believe in freedom. They don't believe in limiting government powers. They believe that the state is the all-seeing, all-knowing God of every fucking thing. Let me scribble something real fast. I'll just say 650. Now, yeah, you've heard them two basically suck each other off for, I don't know, 8-10 minutes. So now let's see how he treats the lawyer arguing for Gator's guns. You're going to see a completely different judge here. I'll bet money.
Until we decide where we're going to go from there. Okay. So it's ultimately going to be the appellate court that's going to determine whether or not it's going to be affirmed or reversed. All right. So, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mead. You get your 5 minutes for rebuttal. Okay. Who's going to argue for Gator's guns?
Austin Hatcher, Your Honor.
All right. Okay. Mr. Hatcher. Okay. Would you understood my introduction, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. About how this came transpired?
I do, Your Honor. Yes.
Okay. That's good. Because I'm told there's people saying some real nasty things out there. Okay. But I just wanted to set the record straight. Okay. You got that?
Absolutely, Your Honor.
All right. Okay. You go ahead and proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, at the outset, I think that the state can't carry either of the conjunctive branches of RAP 8.1B3.
So you're saying there's no debatable issues at all.
Well, Your Honor, I think that the state hasn't carried their burden to show whether debatable issues are present. They cited the Superior Court's order exactly
twice. What are you saying? Is there a debatable issue or there's not? All right. Is there here's what we got. Okay. We've got a Superior Court that went and declared a statute that was enacted by the legislature a couple of years ago as unconstitutional. All right. Isn't that just in itself a debatable question?
Well, I think, Your Honor, the Superior Court did a great job of being thorough in its analysis and in its opinion. It's 55 pages, dense constitutional analysis, and I think it did a good job setting forth its rationale. It explicitly addressed some of the Ninth Circuit and Federal District Court analysis from the Ninth Circuit, as well as the court in Oregon, which I note also found a LCM restriction in the state of Oregon as unconstitutional. The Court of Appeals in Oregon declined to stay that Superior Court's determination, or Circuit Court in Oregon.
Yeah, I saw that order. I mean, you attached it with the declaration. Okay, I want to point out a couple of things. Okay, for one thing, the Oregon statute is rather different than the Washington statute. It's got like a registration requirement. Okay, the Oregon court applies a much different standard as it comes to stays. All right, and second and third, the Oregon, no disrespect to the commissioner in Oregon. It was very well written, but it has
a different judge
here about as much binding effect as a restaurant menu. All right, but I appreciate you attaching to a declaration. You know what I would have really appreciated though was if you attached declarations of like the trial court witnesses or something like that. I get 900 pages of declarations, 900 pages of stuff from the Attorney General's office. Same deal in Guardian's Arms. But I got nothing from you folks except a copy of that Oregon order. But anyway, go ahead with your argument.
Yes, Your Honor. Well, I will also note that all of the authority that the state provides is also non-binding here. Oregon was cited by us because Oregon's constitution was what Washington Constitution's was based upon. So that's why there is some analysis. The Washington Supreme Court has cited favorably.
I know about the Oregon thing. I mean, you were making the same argument in Guardian Gun, so I'm real familiar with that. One of the concepts in the kind of a striking passage is, they look at what kind of weapons that the the settlers had, as they settled Oregon, And do you remember when Oregon became a state? What year was that?
Oregon was 1868, I think, Your Honor. I'm not sure. I'd have to go back through my
1859.
59.
Before the Civil War, it was 1859. Okay, you know when Washington became a state?
1889 was admitted to the Union.
So 30 years. So we're talking about 30 years before. Okay. And so, they're talking about pioneers that really crossed into Oregon like in the 1840s, early 1850s. Okay. And so it's just, we talk about the arms that they had then compared to the arms that we have today. It's just mind-boggling, the technological difference. And so, and then even in Washington, 30 years later, one of the passages in Oregon is, the arms that the settlers had for their personal defense and also for military purposes. Washington in 1889, all of the difficulties, all the tragic difficulties with the native population had long been settled. And we had a National Guard. It was real tiny, and so what the point I'm making is that, talking about what people had back in those days compared to what they have now it's mind-boggling, the technological difference. But you go ahead, all right?
Yes, Your Honor. And on that point, Heller, McDonald, and other cases make clear that the firearms, the right to bear arms, isn't locked into that type of technology that was available when the right was enshrined, similar to the First Amendment, which the Second Amendment is subject to the same rights and protections, or contours and protections, et cetera. Your Honor, I will also point out that Duncan v. Bonta, this is the second time that district court found that the LCM statute violated the Second Amendment. The first time the Ninth Circuit stayed that order, remanded, vacated, and then the U.S. Supreme Court.
Yeah, I read the district court's decision in that case, and I have to say, and also I have to say, the trial court here, I think, was heavily influenced by some very kind of questionable, expert testimony, that sort of thing. Ms. Lubinsky, who I think you can't trust at all. There's the other guy, I can't remember his name, something starts with a K. And they're in all honesty, to be really blunt, they're kind of like in terms of the firearms history, it's almost like a snake oil. They're saying like, that large capacity magazines existed like way before they actually did. They're talking about, repeating firearms existing in the 1500s when, in a practical sense, they didn't. So I'm a little concerned that both the court in California on that Bonta case and the trial court here was heavily influenced by that kind of stuff. But go ahead.
Not about the fact.
Thank you, Your Honor. I was just going to note that the U.S. Supreme Court granted certiorari for that case, vacated and remanded back, and that's why it's back in front of the Ninth Circuit again.
Yeah. Okay.
Your Honor, now I think the debatable issue is, to use a pun, it is debatable. However, I think just about any case can show that there are debatable issues. That's the very purpose that there's a case or controversy in front of the court.
Okay, so let's go. Okay, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. All right.
But Your Honor, where I think the state truly fails to meet the conjunctive test of RAP 8.1b3 is the preservation of the fruits of the appeal. I think this is undercut by the fact that the state allowed ESSB 5078 to go into effect 3 months after its enactment.
Well, now, okay, all right. I'm gonna stop you right there. Okay, your client, could have easily moved for, to attack that statute right after it was enacted, because that was done. For example, in guardian arms and other litigation, as soon as the legislature enacted that assault weapons ban, people were jumping all over that. And there's litigation out there, and your client did.
Okay, you want to know why, Judge? You already know why. Is because if someone had come up and attacked it initially, right then and there, Gator's Guns is a private entity, your courts would have said you have no standing, you haven't been harmed by this yet, and wouldn't even heard the case. That's why Gator's Guns kept selling magazines, so that they could show harm, so that they could get here. This judge is not an idiot. He knows how this works. He's an ideologue, which means facts don't matter. The case itself doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is this judge's anti-gun opinion. That's the only thing that matters to it. Yeah. Oh, man. Oh, God, Bob. This stuff is so freaking insane.
Didn't do that. Okay. Instead, your client apparently accumulated like 11,000 LCMs, and was selling them on the market. So this argument that, about the delay is I'm finding just a little bit odd, considering what your client's inaction for that period of time until all this came to head. All right. But anyway, you go ahead.
Well, Your Honor, I think it's somewhat of a legal fiction that just any person can jump and challenge a statute. It involves extensive attorney's fees, time, subjecting yourself to the enforcement powers, which are quite awesome, I will say. I nod to my colleagues at the Attorney General's office. They are capable of turning out excellent and voluminous work product very quickly. So I think there's a little bit of a legal fiction that someone can just jump on a challenge to these laws.
Well, the group, Guardian's Arms didn't involve a whole lot of clients, but I understand the point you're making. So go ahead.
And so, Your Honor, I think ultimately the fruits of the appeal, the state cannot carry here. All the state has is speculative harms. They're saying that if the LCMs are allowed to be purchased.
Well, here's something that's not speculative. Okay, here's something that's not speculative: is that the representatives, the legislators, acting as representatives of the people, the elected representative people, enacted this legislation for the purpose of easing people's minds about the danger of a mass shooting happening, where the shooter has, for example, as happened in Las Vegas, has happened in the Aurora theater shooting, that type of thing, has maybe like 100-round magazine and is going out there and just slaughtering people. And can keep doing it until they have a chance to reload, until they have to reload. Okay. And so I think you would certainly agree that a shooter with a 10-round magazine has got to reload more often than somebody with a 30, a 50, or a 100-round magazine. Is that correct? I mean, they have to pause and reload. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor, and I think that's exactly why LCMs facilitate effective self-defense as well. Let's say that Your Honor was in your home at 3 a.m. Some of these crazies who have been calling you recently about this decision are, they show up and they're armed and they're going to knock down your door. I venture to guess that the court would rather have a 30-round magazine than a 7-round magazine.
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't. You know what I would do? You know what I would have?
Here's
what I would have. Okay, if somebody went and knocked down my door, I'd have an M1911A1 like my dad had from World War II, because it's got a nice big round thing, and it'll round, or a 12-gauge shotgun, which might have 4 or 5 rounds. Come on, I don't buy this idea that you need to have an AR-15 or a Glock or something with 15 or 30 or whatever rounds. I know shooting. I'm familiar with it. So anyway, I don't find that persuasive, but you go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Well, I think AR-15, we're getting more into SHB 1240, but, for veterans such as myself, other veterans in Washington State, the familiarity of that weapon system is also why they choose those weapons.
Okay, I got a real problem with that. I know a lot of veterans, and I understand that. I really do understand that. Okay, but if you're trained to operate an AR-15 or an M4 or an M249 or whatever, it seems to me it wouldn't be that much difficult to adapt your shooting style to a simpler weapon, like a pump action shotgun or a revolver or something of that nature. But respecting your service, and thank you for your service, Mr. Hatch. I really appreciate that. But I just don't agree with that. But you go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Additionally, the speculative harms are only predicated on the fact that LCMs can enable a shooter to inflict more casualties than otherwise. I think the expert.
I think that's pretty well proven, right? I mean, it's proven in Las Vegas, right? The guy got up in the hotel. He killed 60 people and wounded more than 400. So I think,
Your
I think
Honor,
there's no doubt about that.
he was barricaded in a room. There was no opportunity for someone to intervene and disarm him or anything like that. They were, down on the city streets. He was up in a hotel room. There are many, many mass shootings which are perpetrated without the use of LCMs. And as Dr. Clearivas, which is the expert provided by the state, notes that people are going to get around the laws. People are intent on breaking the law. They're intent on murdering, which is against the law. They will
Okay,
find a
so
way to do that.
the Superior Court said basically there was no societal problem. The Superior Court basically said there's no societal problem to be fixed here. Would you agree with that?
Well, Your Honor, I don't know that it's in Washington. There's been no mass shootings that have been perpetrated with LCMs. I think maybe violence has been on the rise in general, but I'm not sure that LCM laws are going to solve that.
Is there like a force field around Washington that sort of like it makes
not to my knowledge, Your Honor.
Okay, all right. So the point is, I read your briefing where you said there's only been a handful of them. Like you identified 4. Actually, I think there might have only been 3. I mean, there's some we don't know what they are. Okay, but in Nevada, they had one mass shooting. It took out, wounded more than 400 people and killed 60. Okay, Texas, we've had 3 mass shootings in the past few years. The one in Uvalde, those little kids, they couldn't intervene. All right. So anyway, I just want to point out, this thing about the threat, I think is not really all that speculative as a general threat. Okay, is the point I'm getting at. But go ahead, please. You don't have a lot of time left.
Go ahead.
Yes, Your Honor. And ultimately, I think the balance of the harms, right? We have a continued infringement of a fundamental right, the right to bear arms.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Hatcher, I'm sorry to keep interrupting you, but who's the party?
Sorry to keep interrupting you.
Okay, who is it?
Gator's Custom Guns, Walter Wentz.
Gator's Custom Gun. Okay.
Yes, Your Honor.
It's a gun shop, right?
And Walter Wentz is a named defendant, Your Honor.
Okay, fine, named defendant. Okay, so Gator's Guns, when a stay is in effect, is not going to be able to sell LCMs for a while, right? That's the harm, right?
As well as Walter Wentz won't be able to purchase them.
Okay, all right. And LCMs, they're not like bananas, right? They don't go bad or something, right? I mean, you can keep them in the inventory for a while until the stay is lifted. Is that correct? I mean, if you prevail, assuming you prevail, is that correct?
Yes, I believe they can be maintained in inventory. Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, all right, great. Okay, I think you're about out of time. You want to go ahead and make a concluding remark? Go ahead.
Well, Your Honor, I just think that I would like to stress the fundamental nature of the right. Walter Wentz, the members of the Washington public, the citizenry that are impacted, who are unable to purchase these. I think the state, and Your Honor has brought up that California, the entire supply was bought. Here we had several hundred magazines purchased in the 2 hours intervening between the Superior Court's order and this court issuing the stay. I think that evinces that they are in common use and they're in high demand by the public. And so the infringement of a fundamental right should not be stayed. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Thank you. All right, okay. All right, so I had a couple of phone calls. I don't know what that was about, but anyway, sorry for the interruption. Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right, so Mr. McGinty, you got 5 minutes left, okay? I want you to address the thing about, just Mr. Hatcher's point about the harm for, Gator's Guns compared to the harm for the state. What is the harm for the state?
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, that's exactly where I was going to go to. Obviously, debatable issues has now been conceded. So now what we're talking about is what the balance of the harm shows. And here, I think it's important to focus on the legislative findings of fact, because of course, as Your Honor knows, the court gives great deference to legislative findings of fact. In fact, courts ordinarily will not controvert or even question legislative findings of fact. That's Washington Off-Highway Vehicle Alliance v. State. And here, the Washington State Legislature enacted SB 5078, specifically to address the large number of casualties that can be caused in mass shooting situations. And quoting now, large capacity magazines have been used in all 10 of the deadliest mass shootings from 2009 to 2018, where the use of large capacity magazines caused twice as many deaths and 14 times as many injuries. Now, even without that legislative finding of fact, which I think, especially for the purposes of this motion, should be considered to be true, the expert declarations that have been presented in this case, particularly the report of Dr. Clearivas, And he takes a look at jurisdictions with LCM restrictions and without, and finds that in jurisdictions with LCM restrictions, mass shootings, particularly high fatality mass shootings, are less.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just want you to address, because one of the arguments is made, in fairness, one of the arguments is made with the expert declarations, particularly on the self-defense issue, is like, okay, there's this evidence, for example, that you only use 2.2 rounds, fire only 2.2 rounds in self-defense situations. But people are saying, well, okay, that's kind of artificial in a sense, like you're basing it on a number of rounds fired as to this, just the general kind of need for self-defense. And so, like Mr. Hatcher argued, well, maybe somebody wants more than 7 rounds. For me, I mean, I don't need that, but maybe there's other people that want that. So go ahead. Can you react to that argument for a minute?
Sure, of course, Your Honor. And first of all, I want to push back on this notion that that's artificial. So that comes from that's expert Lucy Allen's report. That comes from Portland police reports, where there was literally 0 self-defense situations where more than 10 rounds were fired in self-defense. News reports, and also an NRA database for situations in which self-defensive use of firearms were used, where no more than, there's virtually never were more than 10 rounds used in self-defense. Now,
I think I read there was one instance where somebody shot over 10 rounds, but it was like excessive or something, like it was more than was really needed for that given situation. Is that correct?
Yeah, regardless of the particular situation, it's very, very rare to never that's required in a self-defensive situation.
What about the argument? What about the thing about whether a large capacity magazine is a weapon or is an arm? I suppose it could be if you whack somebody over the head with it. But what do you think about this argument that it's an arm?
Yeah, and then there's 2 bases to find that large capacity magazines are not arms under either the Second Amendment or the Washington State Constitution. One, they're accessories. They're not used all by themselves as weapons. Every single firearm that can utilize a large capacity magazine can utilize a magazine with capacity of 10 rounds or fewer. That was actually admitted in discovery in this case. And second, they are offensive military style accessories. This is the declaration of Jim Urgulitis. They trace direct.
Oh, Urgulitis is in this.
And because they are not used and are not useful for self-defense, both Heller and Bruin and the Washington State Constitution under City of Seattle v. Evans would not consider them to be protected by the Constitution, because the only things that are protected by the Constitution are those that are in common use for self-defense.
Yeah. Okay. The way I look at a magazine, this is the way I look at it. Okay, as a magazine, yeah, it's an essential component for a semi-automatic weapon for sure. But a semi-automatic weapon works just fine with 5 rounds, or 10 rounds. One of the remarkable statements I saw in the trial court order, and it's really pretty remarkable to me, was it was basically saying that an LCM is functionally identical to a 10-round magazine. Well, yeah, that's kind of true in the sense that they feed rounds into the weapon as the weapon is fired, but the similarity ends at the 11th round. Okay, and in that sense, they're not
that 11th round. You're a murderer.
Functionally identical in any way. And then you have magazines that are 100-round capacity. So it's a really interesting issue. It really is. I mean, I'm doing again, looking very hard at all the resources. Okay, the case law on both sides. Okay, looking at all the historical sources. I really appreciate all the declarations that were filed with this thing, and I'm gonna get to work. Okay, I know people are kind of waiting to see what happens, so I'll try to get something out soon. Either the end of this week, probably. No, I don't think I'll be able to get it done by the end of this week. There's too much there's too much to look at, too much to think about. But hopefully, early to mid next week, I can get a ruling out. Okay, and the ruling will either grant or deny the stay. All right,
you know where he's going to like
if it grants the stay, and really what it would be a continuation of the temporary stay. what it would do is, just sort of say it'll be stayed until, until the court orders otherwise. It's just so you give you guys a heads up. If you file that notice of grounds for direct appeal, that probably will be considered by the court. Maybe May might be difficult, June for sure. And if there's going to be oral argument on the merits, it's probably not going to be until the fall sometime. All right, just so you all know. Okay. Any questions before we leave?
No, you're right.
I want to thank you both. That was a really good, vigorous argument on both sides. Thank you very much, gentlemen. All right. You all have a nice day now. Have a great week.
Thank you.
Okay. And everybody's watching. Oh, you all take care. Thank you. Bye.
Recording stopped.
Holy shit. In the opening, just a quick set of things. So in the opening, the state attorney talked for 6 minutes and 50 seconds, roughly, with very few interruptions. I didn't mark the number of interruptions because, Jesus, I'd lost my mind. Out of I think it was supposed to be 10 minutes, and the lawyer for Gator's Guns got to talk for about 5 minutes and 43 seconds with so many interruptions he couldn't finish a damn sentence most of the time. Matter of fact, the longest he talked without an interruption, I think, was like 40-something seconds before the judge interrupted him. And then when it comes to the rebuttal, which the rebuttal is the state, out of 5 minutes, he spent 2 minutes and 50 seconds, roughly, with very few interruptions. Judges like this numbnuts drive me up a wall. Because see, when you're a judge, when you're doing or hearing oral arguments, what you are supposed to do is ask questions of the attorneys and have them explain points. This judge, especially for one for Gator's Guns, he would stop that lawyer and then he would spend 30 seconds, 40 seconds injecting his own goddamn feelings into this shit. Not asking a question about, how are these used? How often are they used? What's your evidence to support this? No, it was just stop him and then interrupt and just fucking puke his own opinion out all over this lawyer. And I will say this lawyer handled this extremely professionally. Way easier than I would probably handle this. Because I probably would have ended up asking the judge, can I explain my case, or are you just going to make my case for me? Do I get to cite any facts, or are you just going to puke your opinion up all over everybody? And then why the fuck do I need to be here? If you're not going to listen, if you're not going to question, let me explain points. If you're not going to do that, why am I here? You and the state attorney could have spent this whole time blowing one another and been just as happy. It's maddening to me. Urgulitis, that the judge cited right there at that last little bit, he was one of the state's witnesses or experts. And I've done streams where we talked about him. He is another one that doesn't believe you need a semi-automatic handgun for self-defense. All you need is a small J-frame revolver with 6 shots. Or you could even get an 8-shot revolver. And then if you needed more rounds, you could do like he did, and you could carry a backup revolver to your revolver. When they get into this, well, there's only, 2-point-something rounds fired during a self-defense situation. A lot of times, yes, because gun owners, people who carry for self-defense, tend to be very responsible with their shots and their targets. because they know there's a damn lawyer attached to every bullet coming out of that gun. So they tend to be very responsible. It doesn't mean that, oh, it never happens where someone fires more than 10 rounds, because that definitely happens. But here's the nasty little game that they play. Most of the time, they just completely blow off defensive gun uses, because the majority of defensive gun uses, someone doesn't fire a shot. They present the arm, show their attacker that they can defend themselves, and the attacker a lot of times leaves. So there's not a shot fired. But what they do is they average those in with the number of times where someone does fire a shot. And they drive those numbers down. It's an averaging game. And it's complete horseshit. If you want to see how many rounds someone fires in a defensive situation, go look at the police and look at how many times those sons of bitches absolutely mag dump somebody. And in a true defensive shooting, someone attacks an officer, they fire. They fire till the threat is stopped. Most of the time, that means killing the attacker. But they fire, and they continue to fire. Usually strings of rounds. 2-tap, 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 mag dump, you name it. So this number of rounds fired in a self-defense situation is absolutely moronic if you actually know or you understand what's going on. What'd you post, D? Okay, I think Bob or someone posted that too. And yeah, if you can be outside of Washington State and actually do this, yeah, I'm going to do it. Because these judges that go through these cases and decide them on their ideology and not the facts, not the Constitution, they need to be impeached. They need to be disbarred. Because they're not following the law. They're making the law up as they go, based off of their feelings, not based off of laws, regulations, constitutionality. No, they do like this judge does. They just puke up their own opinions all over everybody in the court. And they have their little love fest with these DAs, district attorneys, state attorneys, attorneys generals that want these bans and are defending these bans. They just puke up they just loving each other. Two-tap score. Oh, man. So glad I could start everybody's day off with a bunch of fucking insanity, because that's how I was starting my day off. And if you guys haven't figured out already, I like to share this pain out with everybody. So this judge is more than likely going to rule against Gator's guns in the state. He'll get something out probably into next week. And then we'll have, a couple of months before this can move to the next court, because it will be appealed. It's definitely going to be appealed. And then if we can catch that case, we'll catch that case too, and cover it. Because right now, I have to go back and look at some of the specifics in this, but Gator Guns is facing a couple of $1 million worth of fines, because they continued to sell standard capacity magazines after this ban went through. And I'm pretty sure one of the reasons they did that is so that they could show harm, so that they could get into court. Because more often than not, when someone challenges the constitutionality of one of these laws, one, they're going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars right off the rip to even get the case developed. And then when they get to the court's going to tell them, you don't have standing, you haven't been harmed, and the court's not even going to hear the case. We've seen that time and time and time again with everything from gun cases to cases over voter fraud, you name it. These courts love to just throw stuff out for lack of what they call lack of standing. Some of the most maddening ones were back in 2020. Actually, it started in 19. People were challenging some of the voter laws in Pennsylvania and some other places that had changed their voting rules outside of what their constitution said they could do. And people were challenging those. And the court said, wait a second, no, you guys haven't been harmed by this. You don't have standing. Once the election went through and all the fraud and everything happened, they went back to the courts and said, okay, this is what happened. Now we have harm. And the court went, nope, it's already done. There's nothing we can do about it. You don't have standing. And then threw it out again. Oh, man. And again, it comes back to this. And we see it a lot with especially leftist judges who are hearing these cases. This is the most egregious representation that I've seen of it, to where instead of questioning and trying to decide facts and the arguments, the judge just sits there and throws up their own opinion the whole freaking time. No. When the lower court put a stay on it so they could be sold, this judge is the one within 3 hours pushed through a stay on the injunction, which meant it was back to not being able to sell standard capacity magazines in Washington State. And you hear this judge, he's already admitting, I saw what went on in California, so I pretty much already had my stay ready to go. So as soon as this court decided in favor of Gator's guns, I already had it ready to go. All I had to do was basically sign it, finalize it, send it in, and I could make sure that this, law was in place so no one could sell standard capacity magazines. I've seen some bad judges in oral arguments. This guy takes everyone I've ever seen and blows them completely out of the water. Even with the start of this, I've never seen a judge take 20 minutes at the start of oral arguments to sit there and explain that he's just going to throw his own opinion in this, damn the facts. And that's basically what he did. Kangaroo Republic run by banana courts. Actually, no, we've actually become a banana democracy is what we are at this point. And so this is what I'm going to start calling it. It's a banana democracy. Constitutions don't matter. The only laws that matter are the laws that these judges agree with. Yeah, well, right now you can't. Well, I mean, you could, DLD, but they'd come after you quick because this law is in effect again. And yeah, within 3 hours, there were hundreds of mags sold in Washington State. That should be proof enough for these judges that regardless of what this damn legislature did, that the people themselves are not for bans like this. And see, and he's still working his balancing test. Well, someone had a 100-round magazine, they wouldn't have to reload. Nah. They are going out to purposely murder innocent people. They do not give a rat's ass about a magazine capacity ban. Most of them don't plan on surviving the event in the first place. They are there to inflict as much harm as they can, and then they are going to go out either shooting themselves or suicide by cop. Magazine bans do not stop that shit. People could 3D print them. Yeah, they could always 3D print them. There are people, and I believe in this law. It is not against the law to go out of state, go get magazines, and then bring them back into the state. This is simply a ban on them being sold in Washington state. So it's not stopping shit. Now, the assault weapons ban, I can't remember where exactly that's at in the courts right now. Another small slice of absolute fucking insanity. Again, not going to stop a single mass shooting, not going to stop a single murder. And when someone walks in with a shotgun, pump action or semi-automatic, and all they do is take a couple of shots and load a tube and take a couple of shots and load a tube so that gun never goes dry. Oh man, then we're going to be in this whole situation where you only need single shot shotguns. Oh, fucking Christ. And he explains to you the whole time he's nothing but a fucking superfoot. His explanation of a 45, he'd use a 45 because it's got a big old hole. Okay. Can we get, I don't know, some facts or some fucking sanity, please? I don't think it does, not for the importation of mags. Gee. I'd have to look at it again. It's been a while since I've read it, but I am pretty damn sure that if you went outside the state and bought a bunch of high capacity, standard capacity mags, LCMs as they call them, and brought them back into the state, I don't think they can do anything about it. It's absolute. It's just. And yeah, I got to watch more Bill stuff on this too, which Bill stuff is what I saw this morning that let me know that this case actually happened or went to court yesterday. That's his page was one of the first pages I brought up this morning. I don't know about that, Warsaw, because see, they're saying having the components for these magazines would be illegal. So I don't know where that would land. This is more proof of the insanity of these fucking laws in the first place. Let me do this. I'm going to throw this out here and kind of open up the floor. I got a little bit before I got to get ready and get out of here and go to work. So anybody wants to jump in, shoot the breeze, jump in, shoot the breeze. Sing, dance, do whatever. Come join the insanity of this whole situation. And I'd have to go back in and read it again, D. Because there's a couple of these out there right now, and I can't remember whether this one had anything to do with previous possession or whether it was just possession of these magazines at all. I can't remember. I have to go back in and actually dig it up and read it. What's up, War?
Not much. It's just fucking insane for that judge, man. Also, apart from the, Washington State aspect, our borders. Let me see if I can post it here in the side chat, or you want me to text it to you?
No, just post it inside.
Okay. This happened a while ago, but this is a prime example. Like, just because the illegal cartels are not in the United States does not mean they cannot attack us from the outside border, which they've done. This is an old video from 2010, I believe, or 2009. They literally shooting their fucking firearms across the border from Mexico.
Oh, man. Yeah, that pretty much happens to border agents constantly.
And technically, that's the definition of war right there.
Listen, let me look at something real fast. something from the Seventh Circuit popped up on my stream real fast. I just wanted to make sure there wasn't anything going on to look at.
The Seventh Circus.
Yeah,
Fucking Easterbrook, man.
it's and they cited this judge cited the Seventh Circuit and his stuff today.
Yeah, next month is definitely going to be interesting as far as the FOID card and the Illinois assault weapons ban.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, there's so much going on right now.
Yeah, and if you're going to be following the FOID card case scope, it's under the Gun Safe Lives group.
Yeah.
I forget the guy that's running it, but yeah.
Yeah, I forget his name too. But Gun Save Live is they've been involved in a lot of court battles in Illinois in the past 10 years, I think. I'd have to go back and look at when they first came up and some of the hearings we've looked at. But they've been fighting for a long time to try to stop this horse shit.
Well, it can't be just Illinois. It's got to be all of us, dude.
Well, I mean, everybody's got to be doing it.
Because I'm tired of people saying independence of their own states, as citizens fighting our own battles. No, I think we need to fight together as a whole to shut it down one state and the next.
Oh, no doubt, man. It's one of the reasons that, I went ahead and after I saw the work people were doing for GOA, for the Second Amendment Foundation, that's when I went ahead and started supporting those groups.
Then you got SADC, the Second Amendment Education Coalition.
Yeah. But, those guys are actually, Firearms Policy Coalition is another one. They're actually putting in work fighting this stuff.
Yeah.
And I hate saying it, but to NRA's credit, they actually have funded a lot of stuff in the past, 5 years or so.
You mean before they went corrupt with Wayne?
Well, they've been corrupt, but I think Wayne started losing a little bit of influence, and they actually started funding some of these lawsuits.
Yeah.
And we're putting in some pretty serious money for them, which finally, hey, more power to you. Where were you at the last couple fucking decades?
Turn a blind eye to us. That's what was going
on. They're over there, and one of the arguments I've heard about some of the stuff the NRA did was they kept this law from being worse. No, what they should have done was stop it. Period. As a group, instead of sitting here arguing, well, maybe we can make this law a little bit better, they should have been arguing from the start. As soon as this gets passed, we are suing the shit out of you, and we're going to put every bit of our donor money into lawyers to fight the shit. That's what they should have been doing.
Yep. And I don't understand. Here's what really bothers me, Coop. It's people don't understand what country they're actually in. We're a republic. We're not a democracy. Yes, you have a right to be a democratic vote system, yes. But we also have a constitution that says you cannot do certain things.
Well, these leftists like this judge, again, they don't care about that. They really have turned this country into what they want. When they say democracy, they really mean that. That's what they want, because they know that a democracy is mob rule. So your rights are up for debate at any time, which is maddening. I mean, it shouldn't matter whether 65% of the people vote to take your rights or not. If it is a right, 65% of the people can go fuck off.
Well,
and they can continue to fuck off.
How's that not oppressive if I was saying, hey, you can't be doing this anymore? It's just as harmful if I was just telling them to do the same thing to other people.
And PLA said it right earlier. I mean, and we call these guys stupid a lot of times. I think for lack of a better descriptor, but these guys really aren't stupid. They are decently sharp, and that's the reason they frame their arguments like they do. Now, we think their arguments are fucking stupid because it doesn't match with the text of the state constitution, or it doesn't match with the text of the federal constitution. It doesn't match with the history of this. So they play all these little fucking games to try to make their arguments fit when they don't. You know, they say you can't fit a square peg into a round hole, but what they do is they whittle that square peg down to where it will fit. Seriously, if it's a 3-inch hole, then they whittle down a damn 2-inch square, and then they drop it in there and go, see, it fits. And they know the games they're playing. This judge knows the games he's playing. And they know that it is more than likely what's going to happen is, and it's very likely that if Democrats keep control federally, especially after 24, then the court itself, the Supreme Court composition will change in one of two ways. We will lose conservative justices because they are just retired, they pass away, and then leftist judges are, of course, will be appointed to take their places. Or if the government can't get things done that way, then they'll pack the court and overwhelm it with leftist judges. And then all of these cases for mag bans, assault weapon bans, and all that will go to the Supreme Court. They will rush them damn things in there as fast as they can get them. And the Supreme Court will just be like, yep, that's constitutional. Rubber stamp, send it through. Yeah, like, I don't see the Supreme Court being a whole lot of fucking help. I really don't.
You know what really changed things, though, from my standpoints, after seeing the Supreme Court change and shift? It was the moment Ruth Gator Ginsburg passing away. She did nothing. She literally just sat there in a fucking room with books and shit she didn't even finish.
Ginsburg was another one of these. That's an absolute, she was an absolute ideologue. The text of the Constitution, the writings of the founders, none of that shit mattered to her at all. What mattered to her was her opinion and her ideology.
Yeah, she just sat in her fucking room, dude. You should see documents literally crawling all around her.
Yeah, Bob, you're right. They didn't need a democracy to vote in socialism. And that's
the problem is with
going.
The problem with socialism, it doesn't last well.
No, but and they know it. But again, these I've said it before, like with the immigration stuff and some of the other stuff that's rolling through right now. The people in charge right now are more than willing to burn this country to the ground as long as they get to stay in power and they get to rule over the ashes. And they know there's, especially after 80 years of leftists in the education system, they know that there are way more uninformed, ignorant people in the United States than there are people who are actually informed. And they're just useful idiots. They get their programming, they run out there just like this judge and just puke the shit up on everybody.
Yep. Well, you talk about immigration, these illegals. I don't know if you heard, but Mexico and Latin America, Colombia, both those countries, guess what they don't like at all?
Socialism, dictators.
Well, that, but they also don't like Venezuelans passing through their countries, dude. They absolutely hate them, dude. I don't know what it is, but I guess it's some tribalism shit that they don't like Venezuelans.
Oh, we're talking about immigration. Apparently, the Rules Committee is talking about immigration bills.
Just passed the Senate supplemental.
This fucking woman.
A couple months, we could have done that under suspension of the rules. The Senate bill has broad bipartisan support in the House. The biggest losers in this game have been the American people, our national security, and that of democracies across
You guys
the globe.
listen to this and chew on this for a
back in
bit.
the Rules Committee, no
get this cup of
guarantee that Republicans can
Try
pass
to
this rule,
beat my head with a
considering a convoluted package that's no different than the Senate supplemental that's downstairs in the hopper right now and could be called up at a moment's notice. Quit the gimmicks, quit the games, pass the supplemental. I yield back.
All right, thank you. My good friend from South Carolina.
I want to thank the panelists for coming. I agree with what most of you said, to be honest with you. Mike, I agree. Chairman McCall, I agree with your assessment of the speaker. We met with Speaker Johnson yesterday. You know, it's amazing to me when you hear, look, she is watching, other leaders, but the American people are watching. Our only ask was to include a border bill. Our only ask was to include the border bill in this rule, not a standalone, which the Senate will sit on, as they have HR 2. Give us something that in the Senate so-called bipartisan bill, I don't call it bipartisan when you're letting 5,000 to 14,000 illegals per day in this country. That's not bipartisan. Austin summed it up yesterday when I think he asked a number of you, how long are we going to do this? How long are we putting America last? The only linchpin leverage we have is funding for Ukraine. I feel for Ukraine. I feel for Israel. But I feel for the American people in having this flood of illegals in this country that he's talking about on the brink. We saw and Chairman McCall, the vision of the refugees in Ukraine. I feel for them. What about the vision of the illegals basically pushing our Border Patrol agents down? What about the victims? How long are we going to have? How long are we going to have the picture of Lincoln Riley? How long are we going to have Kate Stiley, who was gunned down? How long are we going to put up with a 14-year-old girl in Campbell County, Virginia, who was brutally raped? How long are we going to stand by and let the impersonator in Minneapolis, Minnesota, who went in and shot, he went in as a delivery man and shot 3 people in the head and in front of his 2 children. We're ignoring the main issue that the American people have said is keep our own border secure. Now, I've heard the argument that, well, the Senate won't buy it. Well, I'm sorry. If the Senate won't buy it, they won't get funding, is my opinion. They should not get funding for anything because America, our sovereignty is at stake here. That's why I'm voting no on this. I cannot sit back and let something that does not have the security of this country, Congressman Meeks, I cannot do it as we have an invasion at the border that affects everybody. It's an insult, and I think Austin mentioned it. It's an insult to those who have done it legally. The president is totally responsible for this. It's under his watch over the last 3.5 years that he's opened the borders up. And the not even putting the LNG requirement that we buy gas from America in here. If you really want to support Israel and Ukraine, stop buying gas from OPEC countries that don't like us. It's not that complicated. So my reason, and it's tough to do this. It really is. But I'm simply not going, I cannot vote at any level. And I get it. We're going to probably pass it out of here. But it's something that I can't live with. And it's something that the American people are screaming about. And anything moving forward, I would hope would have some type of legislation that'll shut the border down. And it's not, hopefully it would be bipartisan to shut it down, but it's just not. There's one reason that they're having it in this power. Chairman McCall.
If I agree with everything you said. And I live in a border state, and we're most impacted by it, and the violence and the human trafficking and I was impeachment manager for Mayorkas. We have a president that is not willing to enforce the law, and we have a Senate that will not pass our bills. We passed HR 2, we're going to pass it again. This is more of an enforcement issue than it is legislative. And this is where elections have consequences because he has all the authorities that he needs. Remain in Mexico, I marked that up out of my committee, and it wasn't bipartisan. That was one of the few times, but it's a 30-year-old statute. It's already, he has the same authorities that President Trump had that he used successfully to get the border shut and secure, and this president is failing to do that. And so I would ask you not, and I get it, and I wish the Senate would pass HR 2, but the reality is that they won't. But I would not jeopardize the future of democracy and the future of Israel and what's happening in Ukraine and in the Pacific the greatest threat since my dad's war, World War II, threat to Europe and the Pacific. I would hope that you would not make that
Good old future.
they're not mutually exclusive.
Take it easy, G.
And so I would hope you consider that, but I totally agree with you on what you're saying. We're stuck in
Morning,
this
brother
political
AR.
situation. But I think at this point in time, the president has all the authorities he needs. He just won't enforce it.
And Chairman McCall, the only thing I would add to that, the only thing he understands is leverage. For some reason, the Senate has wanted this Ukraine funding for whatever reason. I can think of some, there's no need to mention why they want it or why they're getting 60% of the funds, which I would rather instead of the 26 billion going to Israel, far more. But that being said, it's not that complicated. Defend America. Make him. That's why I'll be voting against this. I will close with this. I went to 2 funerals. Fentanyl has killed 2 in my hometown, 14-year-old and 40. I mean, how long are we going to keep this up? So that's,
I've been to, my children have been to many. That's very sad. It's killed more than World War II.
My place there, driving.
but thank y'all for your
I would
testimony.
say 80% though of the money for Ukraine does go into our defense industrial base. And it goes into modernizing and replenishing our stockpiles in the United States. And it's going to create jobs in the United States. But that's vitally important too, is we live in a far more dangerous world since this guy took office.
Thank you, and I yield back.
Goes back to the lady from New Mexico is recognized.
Thank you so very much. And I was struck as I was listening to the testimony of our witnesses, and I want to thank each of you for coming here. I also want to thank each of you for bringing to the committee and bringing to the American people, as well as the House membership, the unity of vision that you have presented to us today. The concept that we are in a moment where we must act, and we must act decisively, and it should be bipartisan. Thank you very much, Chairman Cole and McCall, for that. Thank you very much, ranking members. Democrats have been asking that we be allowed to vote, that we allow the membership of the United States House of Representatives to vote, to support Ukraine, to support our allies, to recognize, as you said it so clearly,
All right,
Chairman.
pause.
And that we all know China.
Well, why do we have
Russia,
to spend more money to Ukraine? Why?
Because they always wanted to just keep spending the living ass out of our money. But here's the crazy thing too, Coop. People don't understand. Ukraine has a dark history during the Second World War. It's not as a glorified, beautiful sunshine rainbows as people think it is. Ukraine was divided by good people, by the Nazi Party too, as well. Both Ukraine and Russia has Nazi supporters, and the war out there is literally supporting both parties that are actual fascists, believe it or not. If you think that Ukraine doesn't have Nazis, why don't you look up the guy, Stefan Bandera?
Well, the thing is, man, if we had an honest media and an honest government, they would cover this stuff factually. And you'd give everybody the information, and this is what's going on. Yeah, Sam, if you want to jump in. But if you give everybody the information and let everybody basically make a decision on it, then we know. Ukraine ain't the freaking sunshine and rainbows. But also, the reason Putin is doing certain things is because he thinks he's got legal claim stuff. There were many other ways that we could have dealt with this besides just trying to send money to Ukraine.
We could have just negotiated with Putin from the get-go. Putin literally all he wanted was not to keep putting bases near the Russian border, and we've been violently ignoring him.
Well,
we violated his promise and our agreements with him.
I heard something the other day that they are going to put at some point in the next little bit Ukraine they're going to let Ukraine enter NATO. Which all bets are off the table if that happens. All bets.
Well, you know what's funny is a lot of people don't realize is that NATO its origins are specifically to be an anti-Russian agency, organization, conglomerate, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
It's expressly its existence is expressly anti-Russian. It was founded to, I guess, keep the former Soviet Union in check or some shit.
It was predominantly it was supposed to keep in check against the East German border.
Okay. Well,
but the problem is they kept pushing NATO after the Soviet Union ended, and they kept pushing it to their borders to the Russian government. And back in 2008 with Obama literally, as well as Bush, they actually said, no, we're just going to keep expanding more into Europe. We'll take Poland, we'll take Lithuania, Latvia, Moldova. And that's what they did. They put bases over there in more of Eastern Europe.
my biggest gripe is we don't need to be trying to police the world. We don't need to be all over the world.
No, we don't.
No, Israel's the only exception, but Ukraine, I'd say let Ukraine and Russia fight it out.
Well, I don't think we should be supporting Israel.
We have to, dude. Do you realize those fucking Middle Easterns will destroy that country if they wanted to?
Who cares? It's not our problem. They've been fighting for thousands of years.
All right, I guess you want to ignore a Holocaust?
I don't give a shit. I really don't. I'm tired of seeing Americans sent overseas to die for wars that aren't ours. I'm tired of seeing our country and its people being extorted and extracted to send money we need over here to these fucking people who Israel has attacked us. Israel has murdered Americans blatantly multiple times. I don't give a shit if they doesn't matter. I don't care. You can say, when it comes down to it, you can say what you want about that, but I feel the same way about the Israel fucking Hamas bullshit as I do about the Russia-Ukraine. Let them fuckers fight it out and mind our own business.
Well, here's the thing with Israel as Israel sits right now. We should have let Israel go in, kick ass a long time ago, keep the territory that they won, whether it was a 7-day war or anything else. We should have stayed out of it and been like, look, you guys got your ass kicked by Israel. Israel owns that territory right now. It's the way territories have been conquered for fucking billions of years, millions of years. So you guys can you pick the fight. You got your ass kicked. Hey, what do you want? Cookie?
Right. Well, if you remember, Israel went into fucking Palestine like in the 80s or something, wasn't it? And they started getting their fucking asses kicked when the Palestinians started fighting back. And they cried, boo fuckity hoo, America. And that was that.
No, what happened with a lot of that is this kind of like what's happening now. Palestinians attack Israel. Israel goes in, Israel fucking monkeys their ass. And then the rest of the countries all get together and they tell Israel, you can't do that. These poor people. Should have just let Israel off the leash. Hey, you guys go handle you kick ass in your own neighborhood. As long as nothing goes nuclear, we ain't saying shit. That should happen a long time ago. What Israel's doing right now, fuck them. Let them take that territory. It's their territory. They need to keep that territory. And if Palestinians don't like it, I don't know. Fucking swim for it. I don't care.
Yep.
Day war.
No, listen, I support going out and helping a country very, very little. All right, I want you to understand that. The Second World War was a necessary thing we had to get involved in, because if you see the history of the Holocaust and how bad it got, more people died because we ignored it, and we could have actually prevented it. Now, I understand where we can't do anything with resources, unlimited money on spending. I get that. And also Americans that have died constantly, I get that. But Israel, if we allow that to happen, it would be another repeat of like the Second World War, dude. These fucking Middle Easterns are also in our country, and I understand this too. Coop, I sent you the video of what happened in Sydney, Australia, dude. That fucking pissed me off the hell. This guy literally just jabbed the shit out of the death of this Syrian priest.
Look, yeah, when it comes to something like that, and I understand the motivations more than likely with this guy had to do with Islam or whatever. Okay. they should put that. The minute he jumped up there and jumped on that priest, stabbing his ass, he should have been shot and killed right there. Period. End of story.
Yes.
Roll his body out in the
100%.
parking lot. Fucking buzzards eat. It's we live in which we've always had stuff going on throughout the entire history of man. I don't think we've ever seen another time in human history where people are rushing so hard to basically just destroy the United States from the inside out, while all the time throwing money at other countries. Oh, they're a democracy. We got to throw money at them. No, wait, no, we're a republic, jackass. There's no reason for us to be throwing all this money at all these other countries.
No,
I mean,
you believe
of the killings of the international kitchen aid workers that happened over there. They claim it was a mistake, but Israeli fucking militants murdered people who were just over there to feed innocent people or whoever needed food because of the war. They fucking I don't give a shit what nobody says, man. They drop food on a beach and then start popping shots at the fucking civilians going, no, man. Everyone wants to focus on, the Muslims this and the Muslims that, but the fucking Israelis are just as bad, if not worse, in a lot of cases.
Well, here's the deal with some of that. If these other countries left Israel alone, Israel wouldn't be running around bombing shit.
exactly.
But
I don't.
when you need something, it completely
We're surrounded
like
by Middle Eastern countries, dude.
What's that?
completely just
They're
getting
surrounded
just
by
getting
Middle Eastern
to
countries.
weird
Okay.
just getting to October 7th, right?
Yep.
If someone had come into, say, Georgia invaded Alabama and did that, killed my family, killed my children, Georgia is getting burnt right to the fucking ground. There will be nothing but goddamn ashes left by the time I get done with the joint. Period. End of story. You spend decades launching rockets into a place, killing civilians, and then yes, civilians on your side get killed. And then you go back and you launch another rocket attack a week later, and then civilians get killed. They said, even after, what was it, 90, when was it? It's early 90s, may have been late 80s. There's a series of attacks. Israel went in, kicked a bunch of ass, took a bunch of land, and then basically these peace deals were made, and they told Israel, you got to get back the Golan Heights, you have to get back this, you have to get back that. Oh, and then we can have peace. And I think that was really before the PLO actually took over. But what should have been done, everybody should have stayed the fuck out of the way. Anything that Israel took as an action war, they should have kept, and they should have continued to keep it.
I have a question. Somebody said in the chat, if not for U.S. money, it would have been gone long ago. Now, if not for the U.S., who said that? It was Lightning Scott that said that. That's correct. Without U.S. dollars, Israel would have been gone. In fact, without the U.S., there would be no Israel. Just saying.
Yep.
And
there's no doubt that a lot of American money has been spent in Israel, on Israel, to keep Israel there. Now, I will submit to the class this. After the 6-Day War, when Israel went in, took out Egypt and everybody, we should have just allowed Israel to keep the gains that they got. Israel could have been an oil-producing country by now if they had just been allowed to, anytime someone attacked them, kick their ass and take their shit. And that's exactly what Israel should have done from the start. But all these countries, United Kingdom, us, everybody's got to get involved in this shit.
Well, see, Coop, that's what I'm talking about. We set up this country, all right? not this one, but Israel I'm talking about now. We set that shit up. Well, at the same time, think about what you just said. They should have been allowed. Why does the United States government think it has the right to allow any? That's what I'm talking about. We shouldn't be trying to be the world police.
We shouldn't have. And that's part of what I'm saying is, I don't mind so much, supporting Israel like we have in the past. I don't so much mind that. But when a country is attacked, like I said, if I'm in Alabama, Georgia attacked, killed my family, killed my kids, raped my wife, Georgia will be a parking lot, and I will own Georgia by the time I'm done.
Yep.
And that's what we should let Israel do from the start. Israel, you can go back through all sorts of history and stuff like that. Israel, the Israelis, had a claim to that land, and now that land has changed hands. It's went from Arab to Muslim, back and forth. There's a lot of changing hands of land in that area throughout the centuries.
I mean, aren't there sacred sites of both Israeli religious significance and Muslim religious significance in that area? Shouldn't they be able to live together there?
In a societal sense, they can't live together
for the most part. See, what you have to understand, and a lot of people don't understand this about Israel, there are Arab Israelis.
Oh yeah,
they're Arabs. They're Israeli citizens. They actually serve on the courts in Israel. It's not this. It's not what people try to make this shit out to be. Now, you do have a section where you get into Gaza, where it's almost completely controlled by the PLO. And the PLO will never, ever make peace with Israel. They've said that plenty of times. Whenever they tell you that and then they go do a bomb attack, best believe them, they ain't looking for peace. They're looking for ultimate destruction.
Yep.
So when Israel goes in and bombs the motherfuckers and kills them, I have zero problems with that. And the PLO, much like we've seen with a lot of terrorists, they will hide behind women and children because they know when the dead bodies of the women and children start popping up, then the rest of the world's going to get involved. The rest of the world's going to be telling them, "Oh, you can't do that. These poor women and children." I'm sorry. If you hide behind women and children and you get smoked, you set that shit up.
Right. I'm not saying that any one side is right. I'm just saying I'm against all sides involved and heavily against sending our own people and our own money over there to be wasted. DLD After Dark says, yeah, but dude, they literally airstrike 3 trucks with 6 people that were clearly labeled support/volunteer, and they were all approved by the IDF, and they knew they were there, and they hit them. Yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier, DLD, was they bombed those international kitchen workers. Yeah. And it wasn't a fucking accident. The people were neutral. They were not helping the enemy of either side. They were just feeding people affected by the war, and they were murdered. And that's the exact same kind of shit that these fucking, Hamas or, the opposite side does. They're both Israel and the other side.
I'm in no way, shape, or form saying Israel's hands are clean on anything. I'm not.
No, right.
Israel has done some very shady shit. And they've done some flat out evil shit.
For sure.
But we wouldn't be looking at this right now if we just let natural occurrences happen to where when Israel took land, they kept land. We wouldn't be looking at this bullshit now. Would it have been rough back in the day? Yes.
Hey, but Coop, do you see how that could have led us as the U.S. Into a position of being an accessory to Israeli expansionism, though? Because if we were just hanging around and letting the rest of the world do what the rest of the world did while we, did our thing, then I could see. But the U.S. has to get involved in everything. I could see how that could have ended up, just turning into, Israel conquesting to steal as much land as they could and us backing them up on it. That's sort of, in a way, a similar situation to what we got now.
Getting back to this. So when you have 3 Muslim countries that attack Israel and Israel stomps their asses and actually takes land, that's not just Israel going out there and, I don't know, dicking around, playing golf and killing kids.
No, right.
There was an attack. They smoked a bunch of people. They took a bunch of land. And we should have been out of it. It should have been like, hey, you done sons of bitches picked the fight. You bitches got all your asses killed. And Israel's going to do what they want to do.
Yep.
Right.
So we're out of it.
Well, but what I mean is this, right? Let's say, okay, if they're responding to an attack, fair, and nobody can fault someone for responding to aggression at all. But what I mean is like, okay, so say they get attacked by 3 different countries and they smoke these fags, and they go out and take their land, and spoils of war, whatever. You shouldn't have picked a fight. You'd still have your land. Great. But now let's say Israel decides, we got away with taking this land because they attacked us. Well, let's start fucking with people. Get them to attack us some more. You know what I mean?
Well, hey,
That's
if Israel went out and basically just decided they were the biggest swinging dick in the area and they were just going to take everybody's shit, I guarantee you they're going to have a lot more problems than just a couple of surrounding countries. All I'm saying is we ain't putting boots on the ground. We're not going to try to tell Israel that, hey, you have to give land back, all that. Let them handle their shit.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because again, like Israel's hands aren't clean on anything.
My only thing is, I just wish we were out of it, honestly.
Getting into this last one, even if Israel opened the doors up and let the attack happen, you still had people coming to Israel and rape and murder and rob and all that. So now them getting their asses stomped, they fucked around. Let them find out.
Yeah.
Now
I agree.
When we can absolutely prove that Israel is targeting actual civilians, then people should suffer for that. People should be imprisoned over that. But that's not just that's why we do have world courts in some situations.
Yep.
That's why you have international war crimes.
Kind of like, well, here, Coop, you probably lived through this and you've probably even witnessed this. Say like the Yugoslav wars. You know about that, right?
Yeah, back when it was Yugoslavia, then it was Bosnia Herzegovina. Yeah,
they're literally Serbian war criminals who were ethnically cleansing other nationalities over there.
Yeah.
Hey, Coop, I posted a video in the chat about that killing of those international kitchen workers. So if you guys want to look a little further into that for yourselves, you guys research it and you be your own judges for whether you think they did it on purpose or not.
I mean, the United States has also done shit like that. We made false claims and false reports, and we said, "Oh shit, we hit the wrong person."
Yep, and nobody paid for it, and I think they should have. We're not clean either. Don't get me wrong. I'm not good enough to think we're perfect.
There's a lot of shady shit that our government has done, to include killing a president that head should have rolled for, and nothing ever happens. To getting us into Vietnam. You had the they basically falsified an attack on a U.S. warship, and that was grounds to go into Vietnam. Or to actually go in and actually get into a shooting war in Vietnam, I should say.
Yeah.
Because believe it or not, we actually got involved in Vietnam in the 50s. We were involved in Vietnam before we even went to Korea.
Well, here's another thing, Coop. The whole Israel situation is exactly similar to Vietnam, because with Palestine and Iran, and a civilian, a common Middle Eastern civilian, most of the time you can't even tell who's friend or foe, dude. They literally, a lot of the Philistines are mostly Hamas supporters, dude.
Hey,
Well, look, we've seen plenty of situations when it comes to, if we just look at Gaza, we've seen plenty of situations to where the PLO has used ambulances, they've used World Health Organization, they've used food trucks to actually move weapons, rockets, missiles around, and to actually do attacks with them. We've seen plenty of situations of that. Does that make it right if Israel went in and targeted food workers and just dropped them? No, that's a fucking war crime. And whoever set that up, whoever pulled the trigger, those people should be brought to a court,
brass maybe.
tried, and fucking hung, as far as I'm concerned.
I agree. Lightning Scott.
Yeah, I mean, it's
question: can anyone name a rich and powerful Palestinian in the U.S.?
No.
Nope.
Not offhand. I can name some Palestinians like Rashida Tlaib, plenty of powerful, but not one completely offhand. No.
You know, consider this, folks, real quick. Just think about it. All the civilians in Palestine are likely just like us, don't want a fucking thing to do with all this nasty bloodshed, but are forced into it by their government. It's very likely that we have more in common with the civilians of those countries than we do with our own government or theirs.
Well,
it's a mixed bag, though. The problem is a lot of people believe in Sharia law, though, over there.
Yeah. I mean, well, fine, that's their country. They can. What I mean is their governments are dicking around, wasting their resources and lives just like our government is. You know what I mean?
Well, there's no doubt. That's where you're dealing with governments and you're dealing with people in power versus your everyday people.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people forget that the civilians over there are affected by the war too, just like we are here in a lot of the same, if not worse ways. You know, people tend to sometimes they forget that you've got to separate the population of any one country from its government because they're not the same entity. Not near.
In some cases, you can do quite a bit of that. In other cases, when the people are fully in support of the government, no, you can't separate it out too far.
Yep.
Well, by extension, I would say that the people who are fully in support of the government would be considered part of the governmental body at that point, in so far as that governmental body could not exist without the supporters that feed it.
Yeah. Looking kind of backing up, looking at the United States, our government could not survive if the vast majority of the American people weren't absolutely ignorant.
Yeah, that's right.
They couldn't. We've got too many just absolute useful idiots who actually do vote for people like Biden and some of these absolute fucking moron Republicans that'll get us into any war. They've never seen a war they didn't like. You know, there's too many people that believe in that interventionism.
Yeah, and Coop, I'd say this much: the only justified war we ever made that was international was the Second World War. Korea,
Agreed.
That was technically a hit or miss. Vietnam, that was a bad war we should not have gotten involved in. Middle East, I mean, we pulled out of Afghanistan. Look how bad that made.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the first time. Black Hawk Down, Mogadishu, Somalia, with the fucking Clinton administration.
There's no doubt, man. We've taken our troops and we've put them decade after decade in situations they never should have been in, ever should have been in. And we've done it in a lot of cases, yes, because of oil. Why? Because we're too fucking stupid to take advantage of our own oil in the United States. That would basically, we could leave all these other countries alone, take care of our own resources and would be fine. We wouldn't be dependent on some war leader deciding to do some stupid shit in another country.
But there's more profit for those at the higher echelons in DC and for that. That's why.
Do you know how much a one person to be in the American military is worth?
No idea.
I know some of them, just their training is worth over $1 million.
Just one human being, it's worth only $500 bucks. That's it. $500.
What?
One human life as an American citizen to join the American military is only worth $500.
That's horrendous.
Yeah. No, I'm not joking, dude. Like, if you ever watched the movie, what was it? War Dogs. You know, AEY, that company. You know, that was buying shit from Albania and then sending it to the market illegally. In the beginning of the movie, they literally showed an American soldier, you know, showing equipment and expenses, but in the center of him as a human being, he's worth $500 bucks.
That's wild.
Yep.
I mean, I wouldn't doubt someone breaking down numbers like that, because they absolutely, the politicians and the people that have run this country forever don't give a rat's ass about the people who actually serve that they send to go fight. They don't give a shit about them.
You want to know something horrible? I just realized that means that here in America, the cost of the life of a soldier is less than that of a criminal.
Yes.
How fucking egregious is that? Let alone putting a fucking price on a human head in the first place.
Yeah, $500 bucks
Man,
for a Marine, a soldier, a sailor, an airman, or even a coastie.
Men,
$500
don't fight
bucks.
for the country that hates you. Fight for your fucking neighbors when the time comes. Fight for yourself. Don't fight for a corporate group of fucking goons and slime balls that think you're worth less than $1,000.
See, that's when you get back to narratives. That's when you get back to our government flat out lying to us.
Man, that's fucked up, dude. That's gonna fucking stick in my head.
What, that price of a human being is worth $500 in the American military?
Yeah, that fucks with me. And I thought, you know, fucking property crimes over 1,000 people paying for life for that was horrible. Jesus fucking Christ. Yep. I mean, I didn't know that. That's horrible.
Yeah, if you watch the movie War Dogs, it shows that, dude. I was really astonished by it too.
When it comes down to it, the political elite and the people who are really running stuff in the government, around the government, have never given a shit about the life of an American citizen, period. Whether they're fighting for it, whether they're not.
No, they haven't.
You know, in Civil War, you have states that want to secede. They're done with the federal government. The federal government, Lincoln, decides it's fine to just suspend all the laws, get an army together, go down to the South, and kill millions of people.
Yep.
We shouldn't even be separated to begin with. I mean, a second separation from the American government, regardless of how divided we are, it's the end of our country then, and our home.
How? Wait, how? I'm curious how.
Yeah.
I don't.
What
I'd like to know how you think that.
What you would see then is what we should have seen during the Civil War, or before the Civil War, where countries seceded, draw up treaties. Everybody kind of agrees to the treaties, even if they're not real happy with them. But then if you do that and you allow that to happen peacefully, well, then you really do living in a country that's governed by the consent of the governed. That can completely be done peaceful. And it doesn't have to just tear everything apart. It's not the end of the fucking world. That can be done. And it can be done absolutely peaceful. Where Alabama could tell the federal government, you know what, we're kind of tired of y'all's horse shit. We've got our own constitution. We're going to now live by that constitution. We're going to draw up some treaties so that we got trade treaties with, you know, states that are still in the United States, and we can find rules to play nice. But we're out. We're done. We're done with the federal fucking government. That could be done completely peacefully.
Yeah.
The only thing that the only thing that makes secession violent is when the government refuses to allow people to walk away from this compact.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
That's something, man. I didn't understand. I didn't understand that for a very large portion of my life.
Yeah.
Well, taxes, Lightning. You step away from the federal government and tell them you're not dependent on federal taxes. They're not dependent for us to freaking give them taxes. You know, that could still be done peacefully. But you're right. The federal government, are they going to miss out on all those tax dollars? No, hell no. Why? Because they're a bunch of money grabbing sons of bitches.
Yeah. Well,
Money
my
and
biggest
power.
thing is, you know, there's people who pay unnecessary taxes. Let me give you an example, okay? My aunt has to pay school taxes every year to a school that not only is her son not even with us anymore, but her son never went to the school ever his whole life living here.
Right there, that's an extortion.
Fund. You know, and she's still paying them, and she's retired. Why is she paying taxes?
Why, when you buy a house, do you sit around and pay taxes on it for the rest of the time that you own it? And if you don't pay your taxes, the government can take your house.
Exactly. Because
Yep.
you don't own shit. That Charles Schwab
No.
statement wasn't a prediction. It was him reminding you what's up already.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah, and Coop, you know what bothers me more than anything? Not just that people want to succeed from the whole country. It's the fact that people are pushing on both sides a possible second civil war, which is honestly ignorant of what the people are thinking. It's not going to be a two-front battle. You know what? It's going to happen if it ever leads to that.
Well, if we ever did hit basically a second civil war,
Quote,
this
unquote.
is going to look like a lot of what Somalia looked like.
I'd say
It's
that,
just
that's
warring tribe
close.
against warring tribe.
Well, that and I'd say it'd be close to like what happened to the fall on balkanization from Yugoslavia. You know about the Yugoslav conflict, obviously. And I'm not talking the balkanization or separation of state powers. I'm talking about the ramifications where you had tribal, war criminals to standard police departments, and you had the American military would be, say, like happening here in America. Then you have divisions of gangs and other groups and just constant chaos and tribal conflict. I pray and hope and don't want to see that ever happen in America, dude.
Well, I agree with you, but I'll tell you this. Do you want to know why? There's two reasons that I am both A, ready for that to happen, and B, am not as afraid of that happening as everybody else. The first reason is I have more faith in my fellow men than I think a lot of people do. Maybe I'm naive, but I believe motherfuckers. Listen, man. I mean, not fucking. I've seen so much at this point in time, and I know that not everyone's just going to sit by, and we are going to see people emerge, and it will be a time like this when the young men that are now struggling will be able to raise themselves up to the status that they could not achieve in this society. What I see is young men in this day and age are yearning for a chance to prove themselves. Young men who have no fathers and no mothers, and who have no mothers, and single dads and single moms, whatever the case may be in their situation, that guided. We're going to see leaders emerge in those instances and rally those young men and give those young men hope they didn't have before. You see, this country is just following the logical path.
Here is
themselves through feats of warriorhood.
Here is something that, because that kind of thing happens in other countries.
Yeah.
But what happens in other countries typically, like what you see in Africa with child soldiers, you have the warlord come in, takes a bunch of these young men, completely brainwashes the shit out of them. And then, they're warriors. They're doing their thing, but then they are probably the most brutal and violent sons of bitches you'll ever see in your life.
Yep.
Well,
But
And-
it isn't. I guess what I'm saying
and
with that is it all depends on where that influence.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree.
And
I
Coop,
think missing is that here in America, I don't think we can make it a 1-to-1 comparison with a third world country, because while we're becoming a third world, it's gonna look a lot more clean cut than it really is here because of our abundance. So I think when I say these leaders who will emerge, maybe the pastor who got kicked out of the pastoral position in the church because he was telling the truth during the coof bullshit will step up, and the young men in his congregation, on his off time, he's a Southern pastor that runs runs a range, and he's got his own fucking rig, and he's, you know what I mean? That kind of guy. We're going to have more of those guys. You know what I mean?
Well,
and yes,
there will definitely be those guys. There's no doubt. But what you've got to be careful of, because one, if this thing if it ever goes that way, the times of abundance are through. They're done.
yes,
The
right.
manufacturing will fall. If truck drivers, if their wheels stop turning, products won't be distributed.
Yep.
You might have some places, especially smaller areas, who could go to more like a farmer's market kind of economy, which in a lot of places will. But the time of abundance is going to be done. You're not going to have electricity, much less anything to plug into it. And when you talk about people rising, yes, there will be some good people that rise. Of course there will be. But you will also still deal with some of these leaders. Hell, so you look at some gang leaders that lead fucking Crips and Bloods and all this shit. Some of those guys are very intelligent, very charismatic.
Yep.
And that's how they take these young men who don't have any purpose in their life, and they turn them into gangsters.
Yes.
The problem with that, though,
We'll see a lot of that.
You ever seen the movie Blood Diamond by any chance?
Yeah.
Yeah, apart from that, like in Africa, but where else do we see war criminals, where, warlords are taking children and use them as child soldiers? Where else do we see that?
Dude, the biggest place you'll see it is about any country in Africa. Now it's happened.
Well, it's right next to us, Mexico. They do it all the time. Hell, I just saw a documentary where a 14-year-old kid literally joined a cartel, and he didn't do it by choice. Because the moment he actually met the cartel leaders, he was really at the point where the guy was actually racking and sliding a handgun right in front of him and said, all right, look, if your guys are going to wuss out, now's the time, but you're going to be leaving here with a body bag. That was the statement from the cartel leader.
That's
And
terrible.
that's happening to this day.
See, that's the kind of shit we should be trying to stop. That right there. I would happily dump into a desert to save a bunch of kids. Or
you have a lot of gangs in the United States right now that will use 10-year-olds, 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds as trigger pullers, because when those little kids get caught, they're not going to serve life in prison.
Yep.
And it's insanity to me. But we know it happens. We've seen it happen. And again, you take a kid from usually a broken home, not always, but 90% of the time broken home. And these gangs give them this purpose and make them a warrior and do all this other shit to them and build them up. And all they're doing is using the shit out of them.
Exactly.
Well, the gangs make them warriors. I think they make them killers. And there's a very distinct line, in my opinion.
Well, there is a distinct line, but when you listen to how these people talk, and I've been around some, when you listen to them talk, they talk about that warrior mindset. They're soldiers. What do the gang members always call them? The foot soldiers, whether it's mafia, doesn't matter whether it's an Italian gang, a black gang, a white gang. It's always, man, these are the soldiers out there. These guys are warriors. It's fucking ridiculous.
Yep. If I find a documentary, I'll send it to you, Coop. But yes, I came across that a while ago, and that really shocked me that they actually did that to this kid. Man, he was doing a lot of assassinations as a 14 or 10-year-old,
Oh, dude, there was a one of
Docu.
the guys who did an interview with Sean Ryan talked about a lot of stuff like that, and it's wild.
In my
But
area,
again,
a lot of guys like to use their kids as drug mules,
Oh yeah, they've done it. Got up in their stomachs and shoved the drugs in there.
or just stuff it in their fucking,
Rectum.
stuff it in a book bag.
or you
I
know,
mean, just
well, yeah, in the local area, it's just in a book bag. But I'm talking about like they smuggle it through the airport by making their kids put it in their.
suitcase. Yeah.
Not to no.
No, I'm not talking about an actual suitcase, brother. I'm talking about a
Okay,
suitcase,
all right. You're using, okay. I didn't want to
the
get
old
too
prison wallet.
yeah, prison wallet. There you go. But the point is that these people do that, yeah, and I think it's a worthy cause for our military to be addressing than whatever the fuck's going on anywhere else.
Well, you know how you address a lot of that, man? Well, there's a couple ways. One, you completely lock down our border. Two, you completely stop this useless ass war on drugs. And then what you do is you basically take the profit out of it. If you take the profit out of it, it's gone. It's done. It's dead.
You know, and I think I told you this last time, Coop. You know what's the biggest market right now? It's not guns, illegally trafficked arms. It's not illegal drugs and narcotics. You know what the biggest illegal black market is right now?
It's people.
Internationally. It's human trafficking, including children.
Mainly children.
Mainly, exactly, and that's my rub. That's my.
But you look at our federal government with this open ass fucking border right now, and at last count there were close to 90,000 kids that they can't even account for. So our government had their hands on these kids, and then lost them. They don't know where they're at. So our government is complicit in human trafficking.
Our government is part of it.
Yeah.
Fucking scumbags, man. All of them. I just, I did what was it? Was it the other day? Yet last night, one of my recent streams since I got out of YouTube jail, I asked that question. I said, listen up, America. What's your fucking line? Because for me, it's basically the pedophilia, right? Like, if that's not your line, what the fuck is? Where is the line?
Some people don't have a line.
They lost their humanity the moment they did an action like that.
Some people do not have a line. Some people are actually trying to justify it.
Send it to you, Coop. That's the video I found.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, he was 11 years old. He joined the cartel by force. Like, he either joined the gang or he could have been shot and killed by the cartel leader in front of him.
Yeah, here's something that'll make you sick since we're on the child stuff. There are people right now trying to add pedophiles in as a sexual orientation.
Oh, my attractive person maps. Yeah, I won't wear that.
I heard about that. Listen, that'll be the day that I buy 10 wood chippers. I'm telling you, it's going down.
I would definitely become a certified wood chipper operator. Hell, I'm not even a union fan. I'd start my own union at that point.
Give me a call. I'll help you out.
It's but this is where we talked about years ago, but even before social media, and it would just be, personal conversations. And we talked about where it was going then, saying it was going to go this way. And people thought you were crazy back then, 20 years ago. And now you look at where we're at, where they literally have a stripe on the freaking LBGT whatever flag for pedophiles.
Yep.
Oh, you want to mention the LGBTQ flag, by the way, the trans flag? Where was it? Up in Canada, they actually had a fucking communist Soviet flag right above the actual stripe of the fucking transition flag, and I'm like, okay, you're claiming this is communism? If you were in communist China or North Korea, it'll be a death sentence for you guys to be there.
Right.
Oh man, again, this is where we get to the fact that the vast majority of this country are uninformed, absolute morons. There's I don't know. They're so fucking out there.
You're right, Lightning Scott. It's already here. That's why I'm making armor. The fight's coming.
It's you know, I think we're looking at a rough amount of time before this 24 election. And depending on which way this 24 election goes, either way, it's going to get a little bit rough after. But I can pretty well promise you, if Democrats keep control and actually keep control of the Senate, gain control of the House, and keep the presidency in 24, this is going to get 1,000 times worse.
I don't know, Lightning Scott. I think we got 3 to 5. 20's being generous.
Yeah, I don't think it. I would probably say in the neighborhood of 10 to 15 to actually be legal. Because there are still enough people in this country who actually believe that, in some sort of morality. Instead of this amoralic shit where you're your own God, do whatever makes you feel good. There's still a pretty solid group of us. Now we're a lot smaller group, but there still are a pretty solid group of us that believe in principles like life and liberty. That as long as what I'm doing does not wrongfully deprive someone else of life or liberty or property, that's a just existence.
Let no man interfere in the affairs of a man whose actions concern no life or will but his own.
Who said that? What's the
I
quote?
don't know. It was one. It is. It's one of the founders, and it's probably not verbatim, but I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, it's a quote by one of the.
It sounds really damn familiar, and it's right. As long as again, and I've talked about it on streams before. As long as what I'm doing does not wrongfully deprive another of life, liberty, or property, the government shouldn't be anywhere involved in my life. Now, the minute I wrongfully deprive someone of life or of liberty or of their property, that's when laws should kick in. That's when the court system should kick in. That's when police should be involved. That's when you, depending on the severity of it, someone could bring you to court and you pay restitution, or depending on the severity of it, you go right to the gallows.
Yep.
And when we're talking about harming children, that ought to be right to the gallows situation.
100%.
You don't put someone like that in prison for 2 or 3 years and let them get out and then go recommit. No, you solve the situation.
When I was 16, me and some other kids, we broke the law. We broke into some places and we stole some shit. And I paid for it, is the point. And while I was in prison, you know who had the highest release rate for both parole and good behavior release out of any other crime
Probably
type there? Sex offenders.
More than likely. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Sex offenders. Years ago, so this was in the 80s. There was a guy in Washington State. Okay, he poisoned some trees, killed them. That guy got more time in prison than a serial child molester.
Jesus fucking Christ.
That is a dead ass true story.
Well, America, if you wonder why we're having these fucking problems, there it is. Because a motherfucker that poisons trees is more harshly treated than a motherfucker that diddles babies.
That happens constantly. It's, I don't know, if you want to look at the why we have all these issues, not necessarily Thomas Massey, but you look at our government look at the laws, look at the welfare systems, all the stuff that they've put in place.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, Coop, does your friend who was here have his own channel?
Warsaw, he does, but he doesn't do a whole lot on it right now.
Oh,
Now I'm pretty sure his pay or his channel's still up, but he doesn't do a whole lot on it right now.
oh.
But you'll
Well,
see him. You'll see him in.
I'll give him a sub anyway.
Yeah, you'll see him in chats with me. You'll see him in chats with a bunch of other guys. Yeah, Warsaw's a good dude.
Yeah, I've seen him around. He seems pretty on point.
Yeah, Warsaw's definitely on point, man. He's one of the good ones for sure.
Well, you know, there's not too many of those nowadays, huh?
There are, let's put it this way, a lack of them, to say the least.
Indeed.
But it is what it is, man. Anyway, brother, let me get out of here. I got to finish getting ready for work, and then I got to bounce.
For sure, for sure. Well, thanks for having me on, dude. I appreciate it. And hey, before I go, if you get some time, I'd appreciate it if I could pick your brain a little bit about some of that 3D printing knowledge. So
I'm not the one to pick the brain on for that. I've done a little bit, but not a lot. Let's put it this way: I am still learning. Matter of fact, I haven't run my printer in a year, and I've got to get it. I've got to get it up because there are a few things I want to print here in the next little bit. So,
well, I got another 3 coming, so I'm getting back.
Good deal.
Yep.
Yeah, if you want to look at printing, do you follow Hoffman Tactical?
I do. I love Hoffman Tactical.
Okay. Hoffman, man, is a great resource for printing. DLD is a great resource for printing. Flying Rich, they're mentioned in the chat right now, is a great resource for printing. All those guys are on point. Sabar, another good guy. Of course, Come Out PLA, one of the guys that was in the chat earlier, is another good one. Yeah, there's a bunch of solid guys out there that know fucking way more than I do. Matter of fact, they're who I go to when I got to pick someone's brain about it.
Right. Well, I'll give those guys a look-see. I just, I don't know. I think I'm doing something wrong, and, I'm not really sure. If I had someone I could, show my screen to in real time that could be like, oh, yeah, look, right there, you're fucking that up. You know what I mean?
Reach out to some of these guys. 3D Print General. Now, 3D Print General it might be more on his Rumble side. But 3D Print General and a bunch of these guys on Rumble will have a bunch of really in-depth stuff on printers, setups, filaments, everything.
Awesome. Well, PLA is what I
just can't do it. Yeah, we just can't do it as much on YouTube these days because YouTube is just so shitty about their stuff. But definitely the alternate accounts for these guys that are over on Rumble or Odyssey. Mr. Snow is another good guy. Chairman Juan is another extremely good dude. You can find a lot of their stuff on alternate platforms outside of YouTube.
Chairman Juan put out some slice files, didn't he?
Yeah.
I have some of his slice files. That's
awesome.
You'll
see. I think especially more on his Odyssey than anywhere else. I think is where you'll find a lot more of the real in-depth and files and stuff like that.
All right.
But yeah, definitely look those dudes up. But
sure.
Anyway, guys, let me get out of here. Bob, PLA, Sam, Lightning, everybody in the chat, man. DLD, if you're still in here, man, I love all you guys. Ron Wayne checked in, my brother. AR Patriot, of course, Elliot, man. If you got to follow reload and stuff, AR Patriot's the dude to hit. And he's got connections into a lot of other guys that are reloading. So, matter of fact, AR will actually sit down and do streams on reloading setups and stuff like that. Him and Mac, man, who he was on with last night. Hey, there's tons of good dudes that we're all connected with.
That's awesome.
And the more you hang out, the more you'll find more and more of these connections. even the guys who are casting their own bullets, loading their own loads. I mean, you name it. It's a very wide community. DLD is another guy. If you're not following DLD will have guys in from printing to prepping. You name it. It's a really, really damn diverse and wide group. But anyway, let me shut my mouth. Let me get out of here. I still got to finish getting ready for work, and then I got to hit the brakes.
Thanks for having me, man. Have a good day, guys.
No problem, brother. Take it easy, and I'll end it as always, man. You perps be cool. Keep that thing on you at all times. Love you guys to death, man. You guys all have a great rest of the day, and who knows what I'll be doing. I mean, I got to go to work, but you never know. I might pop up with something because I'll be watching something retarded like this here and probably put it out there. So yeah, you criminals be safe today. Bunch of perpetrators. Love you guys, man. We'll catch you after a while.